Let's get into something that I thought was kind of common knowledge and something that I thought was more normalized in people's kits, but as I go along and do workshops and meet a lot of people over the years, it seems to be like this, like, what is that stuff? So I thought I would bring it to your attention. And I think it's mainly something that has always been around the pro division of the world. And now that we're in such a DIY production type society and people are learning things on their own, home photographers, people that may not have come up assisting older veterans of the game or whatever reason, maybe never been in a rental house, whatever, anything, rental studio. It just never came across their plate. So I figured I would shed some light on it, no pun intended. Cinefoil, what? Yeah, Cinefoil. So this video is not sponsored by Roscoe, though they do make this. You might have heard of them from their gels or the gel kits they sell out there. But Cinefoil is one of these unsung heroes, I feel like, in the grip lighting, whatever you want to call it. It's something that you can have for quite a while. It's very low cost. You have a lot of options and sizes as far as, widths of the roll go, or how long the roll is, how much you might need. So if you don't need a lot of it, or you think that it might not be something you're going to have for the long haul or use a lot of, you can get a small roll and just keep it on hand. And the price varies immensely. So I urge you just give it a shot. I think you could even start at like 10, 15 bucks for the smallest roll that's out there. What is this? Why am I talking and not showing it? I know. Basically what Cinefoil is, that's it. It's just a foil. It's a heavy gauge aluminum foil that has black matte finish on it. So what does this do? Well, this allows you to have complete light control in the weirdest times, in the weirdest spaces, without causing a domino effect of you changing 10 tons of things. It is not only heat resistant being a foil, but it also maintains its shape as a foil, which means you can actually mold the way you want to block light, which means more control. So this is a Profoto B10. With the B10, it's got a pretty strong modeling light. But let's say I'm in a situation that I only want the light somewhere, but not somewhere else. Maybe I'm using the head like this and it's spilling onto a background or hitting a zone that I don't want. Well, I just take some Cinefoil and some quick gaff tape, and there it is. It's no longer spilling where I don't want it to spill, or I can actually wrap it around and really make the opening as small as I want, so I can actually get like a snoot type effect. And it's just a small piece of foil and some gaff tape, and you're done. Instead of you having to figure out, well, let me grip a flag, let me try to make this block this. Maybe if I change my ratio, stop. Maybe it's reflecting off of that thing right there. No, just take out the Cinefoil, tape it up, and get it over with. It's really awesome because it's almost, whoa, hello. It's really awesome because not only does it give you more control, but it kind of gives you more creativity as well. You can do a lot of stuff with this that might open up your game plan altogether. Since it's a foil, it's reusable, right? So maybe if you've been using a ton of sheets of it, or you just keep on pulling a new sheet and forgetting about it, you can fold it up, keep it in your bag, and just keep stacking it up. After a while, you have all these pieces, you can just tape them together, chop them up, make like holes and shred them different shapes, and then shoot light through it like it's a cookie and put a patterned light on something, make a different background happen. Now, there's a lot of different methods and ways to do this and get different results. And if you guys are interested in how to actually do it and get a real kind of formula or a method to how to do it most effectively, let me know in the comments down below if that's a video you'd be interested in. I have no problem setting that up and start going through it for you guys. But I want to take this channel in a direction that will benefit everybody. So if it's something you're into, just let me know. All right, so I know what you're saying. Well, Seth, why do I need this? Why can't I just use something really cheap like black construction paper or fabrics or whatever? Well, here's the thing. With the foil, it's heat resistant. So whether you're using constant light strobes or whatever, something that's emitting a lot of energy, heat, anything like that, it'll hold up. So if you're doing something like tungsten light, if you're doing something like a constant light source that has a lot of power output, there's a lot of heat. Construction paper and things like that only get you so far in a quick bind, but it's very unsafe. This, however, can handle the heat and also it can hold its shape. So if I wanted to bend it somewhere, it'll stay that way instead of me playing with things that aren't as rigid or can actually maintain a shape I put it in and then giving me inconsistent results as it's moving while I'm trying to shoot. This will stay where you put it, and it's really up to you how much of the light you want to control and how much you don't want to control. I've even been in situations where you wrap around a light and then, oh, you know what? I just kind of need that much light to spill this way, and I just do it and it's no problem. One of my friends out there, Byron, if you're watching, what's up, buddy? I hope you're doing well. He used to say a piece of Cinefoil can save an entire set. And he's kind of right, especially for things like product where the set gets really tight and narrow. When you need a lot of light control, if you're putting a lot of sources and a lot of flags and all these different things in there and it's a tiny little product, a lot of times you're running out of real estate for those stands. And instead of you trying to move something to stop a reflection or pivot something another way, which hits another thing, then you move that, then you space everything out even more, then you're changing your exposure, and then all the light patterns change. All you have to do is go right there and block the light or block the reflection you were trying to block with just a piece of Cinefoil. It could be one of the greatest things you ever pull out of your bag, believe it or not. And it's one of these things that, like I said, it's there. You just know it's there because you've always had it in your bag because you bought it, you used it, you made some pieces out of it, you rolled it up, you folded it up, whatever. You just know it's in that bag. And if all your back's against the wall, you pull out that card. I think you'd be really, really surprised, not only with the control you get, but where your inspiration goes, where you look at a piece of foil that can control light, you can create patterns, create textures, all sorts of different things. You're gonna start going, you know what? Why don't I try this? You can even make a piece of Cinefoil that's like this big into a backdrop, put a bunch of pinholes behind it, rip a light through it, spray some fog even, and you can get these pinhole type lights that really look very dynamic, a little music video looking if you ask me, but it is something that you can do. And maybe I'll make a whole video about what different things we can do with Cinefoil as an actual application rather than me just talking about it. Let me know about that down below. And for all you people out there that are going, but Seth, it's just foil. I'll just take a roll of aluminum foil and spray paint it. Well, yeah, good luck with that, because what you're gonna do is take out pieces, spray it, wait, flip it, spray it. Then you're gonna try to pack it back up and it's not gonna be as clean. This, it's done. And I would be with you if this stuff was pricey, but it really isn't. I can't express to you enough how much it'll do for you for the fair price that it costs. And I'm gonna put a bunch of links down below. You can check out whatever sizes. I recommend just getting the smallest roll, seeing how you use it, see how you adapt to it. And it can work for any light you own, right? From a speed light all the way to a studio strobe. It doesn't matter what you're using. It's one of those things that's so universal. It's just like what I keep saying, grip goes across all systems. I don't care what brand camera you use, brand lighting, what type of lighting. You really can benefit from this. And I think you'll even be surprised how much your knowledge of the way light acts grows, because you'll be seeing how to control it more. So you kind of learn where the limitations and things are with spread of light and all sorts of stuff like that. So I hope this helped you guys out as far as opening your eyes to some things that might be out there. If you're interested in me finding some more grip that I think might not be as common knowledge out there, let me know down below. I'm not sure if these videos are hitting or not. I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going with this channel, but Cinefoil is definitely something I love this stuff. Roscoe, oh, you're the best. All right. That's gonna do for me, guys. If you like this video, please hit like, share this video around. Don't forget to subscribe and the bell, and hit me up with some comments if this, and also share some experiences you've had with Cinefoil. If you guys gave it a shot and you had a positive result, if you somehow put it on your Instagram, link your Instagram down below with the post that you used it on. I would love to see what you guys are doing out there. It's so creative, it's so versatile. All bets are off with this. Okay, I'm trying not to make these videos like super long. Thank you guys for joining me. My name is Seth Miranda, Last Ex Witness on all social. I'll see you on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, whatever. Be good to each other out there. Later. What's going on, everyone? Seth Miranda here, coming to you from my studio right here in Manhattan, and I'm bringing you another cheap trick, some real short content for you. This one I know isn't that special, but I didn't even realize that a lot of people had so many issues hanging backgrounds or didn't even think about doing it this way, because maybe you don't need to do something crazy and you don't want two stands on either side and a crossbar. You were just someone in a small space, a small New York apartment, or you just need to cover up some stuff that's on a wall and get a background going, some quick shots on something. Maybe you have an Etsy store, need a clean background, whatever it is. This is a really easy way for you to hang a background without using stands. If you don't know what I'm about to do, you're probably gonna smack your forehead after I do this. Sorry, this isn't like so dazzling, but it's actually very useful. All you're gonna do is, instead of thinking about it like this, where you pull the paper down from the roll, you're just gonna do it opposite. And you're gonna tape the paper up and then roll it down the wall. That's it. Especially if you don't need someone like standing on the paper, it's a great way to just drop it down and get some shoulder up stuff. Or even if you do need someone to stand on the paper, you can keep rolling it out and then just put a weight down so it doesn't roll back up, and that's it. All you gotta do is throw some tape up and roll it down. And there you go. You've got a temporary background set up without needing any stands or background system. If you don't have any room for 3 feet, 2.5, 3 feet around on either side for the stands and then the crossbar, or have to worry about it even falling over or something like that, you're good to go. Right there, boom. As long as you have enough space for whatever width you're trying to do, you have it. And remember, longer lenses lets you get away with a smaller width background. That's a whole thing. Maybe I'll do a lens perspective video, but let me know in the comments if this was helpful, if you'd like to see more of these cheap tricks, I'm calling them. If you wanna help this video out, hit like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified when more videos like this come out. And you can find me on all the social right here somewhere. I'll throw a graphic. Thank you guys so much for your time. I'll see you next time. If you don't know who I am, I'm a pro photographer right here in New York. You're in my studio in Manhattan, and we are down here today because I'm gonna show you some quick tips on how to make some portable, low cost, and just fun backdrops for whatever you're trying to do out there. The ones we're gonna make right now are kind of really optimal for tabletop and product, but you can also use them for portraits, and I'll show you that a little later. This comes from a technique, I don't even know if you wanna call it a technique, it's just a method of doing things that I definitely didn't come up with, a lot of people do. Years ago, I'm talking like the early 2000s when I used to shoot catalog, which I never wanna do again. I would offer the client not only lifestyle shots on the streets, but we could do some studio looking shots on the fly. And the way we would do that was we would wallpaper plywood, and we would not only do one side and both sides, but sometimes we would do it in quarters so that we could not only flip it around for 2 different looks, but also flip it around to get 4 looks if we wanted to. And the way we would do this, shoot lifestyle, then go and find a shady area, or a shaded area, I should say, and then line up all the plywood. It'd be about 5 sheets, and just shot, 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 click, 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 shot, 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 click, 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 shot, shot, shot. And then when I was on the 5th board, assistants would start flipping over the plywood, and we would walk the other way and get shot, 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 shot. So we would get 10 different looking backdrops with even flat light, but it gave the client a lot of selection. And if you're in a small environment, you don't want to get set paper that is like 9 feet wide or whatever, this is kind of a nice solution. You could also do this using V-flats, which is right over there. I have the window open because we're gonna be using spray glue, so I apologize if you hear some construction or if there's a lot of reverb in my voice right now, but it's just nature of the beast. So basically what we're gonna do today is, just like that V-flat is made out of foam core, so is this piece of foam core. You can get various densities and thickness. I tend to go for the 1/8 inch just because The thicker it gets, the more you crunch it when you put it inside of a C-stand, and I'll show you that as well. If you guys did not see my C-stand video, check out the link below, I'll put it there. But I think it keeps it rigid. It also is lower cost than like 1/2 inch or thicker or something like that. And it's all you really need. So what we're gonna do is take this white piece of foam core, which in its own right could be a background, right? It's white, it's nice and clean. And we're gonna use some decorative paper. Now you can use anything. I mean, gift wrap. I've ripped up dollar bin comic books. I've used pieces of yearbooks from yard sales, newspaper clippings, vintage magazines, weird ads, whatever you want to make a background out of, you can do it. The difference here is I'm just doing it with one sheet as opposed to like a decoupage, collage kind of effect. This is just really easy, really simple. And I find that since it's not a lot of work intense or time consuming, or even just gathering multiple materials or even repeatable, you don't tend to have to baby these backdrops. You can just kind of like treat them like disposable backdrops and beat them up a little bit, try different things on them, all different stuff that you would normally not put near a backdrop that you want to save really nice and clean, you know? That being said, if you don't know what I shoot, a lot of times it's special effects makeup, and there is fake blood and weird types of chemicals flying everywhere that could stain anything. So this is definitely a benefit for me. So this is a few bucks in foam core, and I think this is a 24 by 36. So while this can be used for tabletop, I mean, you can see I can use it as a backdrop for a person, and I'm gonna show you how the lens dictates how much of this you're gonna need. Well, we'll go into that later. Let's make the background first, and then we'll talk Sheila into coming out and getting in front of the lens, and we'll try them out. So first of all, I have set paper on the ground just to you know, keep it clean. And this is 24 by 36, so I went and got 24 by 36 decorative paper. I went right to the sale bin at the art store. This was, I think, $5 in paper. So now what I'm gonna do is get one side covered, cover the other side, and have a $10 backdrop kind of. So I think it's pretty awesome. This also works really good for top-down stuff, right? So if you're doing something like food photography or doing some sort of like Etsy store type stuff, this works for that as well. But what you want to do is make sure you get it down nice and even and clean, and that's where the trick comes in. So this is the same method I would use for the Brooklyn reflector, where we put aluminum foil down on a foam core. So let me just do this, because this will be the definitive video on how to do this rather than all those shady half-ass live streams I do all the time. So you kind of want to get it lined up. This paper is like a hair bigger than the foam core, which is good. We can either leave it or we can trim it, and I'll even show you guys how to do that. The key to doing this real flat is to do it 1/2 at a time. Check it out. In between gigs years ago when I was a kid, I actually did some odd jobs like lettering trucks, and this is how we would actually vinyl letter trucks. You got some masking tape, and because this is paper, you want to find something that's really low tack, but usually masking tape, if you get it anywhere, has a really decent amount of tack to it. So to counteract that, because you don't want to rip the paper, is I get the size I want, I rip it, and you're easily gonna go like 1 inch or 2 past the paper, and you're gonna tape it down to whatever table you're on, but I put it on my shirt, and that eats up some lint, and that will actually take down the tack as well. And you only need enough to keep yourself anchored down. You don't need it to be an actual adhesion. So what I do is I tap it to the table, and I very, very, very lightly graze across the top, and I tape it down here. So now we have a way to lift up only half and keep the other half down while we're working on one side at a time. This will be way easier for you to glue this down. So I'm gonna use 3M Super 77. This is one of the most common and definitely one of the strongest glues that are readily available out there. There's also General 45, which is a little more industrial. You may not need that, and it's a little more expensive as well. But this stuff is really good. It's been a standard forever, and we're gonna get into this. Before you get going into this, you're gonna need something rigid though. So I guess I should have scripted this out so we do this by parts. Hopefully you're not doing this step by step with me. So I have this, which is a squeegee. I'm gonna stand up a little bit. And you can see it actually has these round parts to it that let it float on my fingers. So when I'm doing this, it's not stuck in a position and get like rigid and staggered and just really wreck the paper. You don't need this though. It is a few bucks at an art store. They're just a squeegee. However, if you're home and you're doing this on the fly or whatever, credit card, driver's license, just something that's thin, rigid, and you can, get a good squeegee down with it without having too much flex in it or being too sharp to rip the paper. That's a big thing too. So keep that in mind. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna flip this over to the side of the tape. So now we have half of it exposed. I'm gonna take my Super 77. I'm just gonna do a test spritz into the garbage. All right, so that's good. Before we do that, we want to make sure we have windows open and we are covering our faces. This has a filter in it, by the way. We all have plenty of masks these days, so just keep yourself safe. Don't breathe in glue, you friggin' mooks, okay? Hopefully you guys can still hear me nice and clear. All right, so if you're not a graffiti kid, the way you typically want to spray is spray, stop, shift down, spray, stop, shift down, spray, stop. And you want to overlap the lines a little bit. So spray, 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 spray. And that's a light dust coating. I tend to go back up that way as well. And the reason you don't want to just hold it down and just rip through it is because that's how you get uneven glue and some dense spots, and it can be really annoying. Then you just want to do a light dust on the paper. And if you want to get a really nice adhesion, you're going to give it a few seconds to just tack up. You don't want to go right away. You want to give it a little bit of time to solidify itself. So now we have glue on both sides. It's not too tacky yet. We're going to give it a couple more seconds. Remember, this is spray glue. Don't underestimate the overspray and don't underestimate the vapors. Open windows, I'm sorry you guys hear the construction, but I don't want to kill too many brain cells today for you guys, right? Sorry, you're not worth it that much. We're going to pick up the end that we just glued really softly. We don't want to rip up that masking tape. Now from the tape towards the edge, you tend to start with the squeegee on the other side of the tape because you don't want to squeegee the tape down. Don't squeegee the tape down. If you do, you're gonna rip the paper, trust me. Especially if it's decorative paper like this. And very slowly, no craziness here. No craziness. And look at that, so even, so nice. And what I tend to do is go the opposite way just to give it a little bit more of a tack down. Now what we can do is we can take this tape off before we damage the paper. You can even see that there's, I don't know if you guys actually can see, but some of the paper print is actually coming up with the tape. It's that fragile. This won't happen with all papers, obviously. If you have something that's glossier, it won't stick as easy. This is super matte and like very fibrous type paper. So not bad. Now, because we already have this glued down, guess what? We flip this over. Look, it's a blank side again. We get to do it all. We get to relive the moments, everybody. We get to do this all over again. So I'm gonna go and just spray this down. Remember, you kind of want to overlap each line. You don't want to have like dense spots and thin spots because over time, that's when it starts bubbling and separating, or sometimes it gets gloppy and can bleed through the paper. If you get glue bleeding through the paper, it's ugly, man. It gets bad because not only does it make dark spots or something like that, but dust and dirt and other things get stuck to those globs on the side of the paper that you're going to shoot at. So it kind of sucks. All right, so we're going to let that tack up a little bit. Again, make sure you have air circulating, have a fan on, all that type of stuff. I have an exhaust fan on over there. You can't see it, but it's on. Now what we're going to do is squeegee the other way. Now, if you're only one hand is, if you're only like a righty and you can't do both, turn it around. Just use it the other way like you just did it. But I'm going to use my left hand because I'm a baller. No, I'm just kidding. I've just done this so long, so many times. It doesn't matter what hand I do it with. Because you couldn't choose to flip the van around when I had to letter those vehicles, right? All those trucks, I had to learn how to do this with both hands. There was no, just flip it around, it'll be the same. All right, so we have a really nice clean, this is probably stuck to the plastic I have on the table now. Yeah, it is. But you see how even that is? Really nice and even. Of course, you're gonna wanna let it settle. You're gonna want the glue to like do what it's gonna do and evaporate and all that kind of stuff so that it makes a good adhesion before you do anything, especially if you're throwing hot lights at it, you know, tungsten lights or constant lights of any kind, you do not want to go right into it because the heat will actually stop the glue from settling in really nice and tight, and it could cause more separation over time. So just don't go, you know, just don't go crazy, you know, let it settle, let it move in, you know. Now, let's say you're using something that has like more of a vinyl base to it. It's not a paper, and you get air bubbles because paper is actually porous. It will actually let the air escape through it if there is like an air bubble type situation. If it's something like a vinyl or something like that and you get air bubbles, you're just gonna take a little needle and poke it and then just smooth out the bubble. That's it. I mean, that's as easy as it gets. Now, as far as the overhang, because if I do this, you guys can see how much bigger it is than the foam core, right? Well, anybody out there who has ever gripped up a skate deck knows exactly what I'm gonna do right now. Of course, this is after you let it settle. Don't do it right away. But to help you along, do yourself a favor and just squeegee the edge of the board down. And when you do that, you make a weak, you know, a thinner spot in the paper, and it'll actually help you trim this down. You see how you get like a definitive line when you do this? You guys see that? I can't even tell. I need a camera guy. And we're just gonna help it along. And now I'm gonna take out a blade. You're gonna wanna use like an X-Acto knife. I'm gonna use this pocket scalpel I always carry on me. It's an autopsy blade, a 60 XT size blade. And what you're gonna do is you're going to, right on the edge, pierce through, and you're just going to kind of do like a light saw down. Sometimes you can just like run it through, no problem. But this is a very, very like fibery paper. Like there's actually like lint coming off of it. But this is, you want to be very careful with this. You don't want to cut yourself, obviously. I don't want to be the reason you guys cut yourself, believe me. And you just get a nice clean edge. You can clean up any weird spots that you get, which could happen, you know. Or you can just get paper that's not even the whole size of the foam core, but if you do that, the overspray from the glue will still be on the board and you're gonna get stuck to it. So I always tell people, get the paper to be bigger than the board itself. And if it's not, try to get more than one sheet of the paper so you can just double it up. You're gonna wanna, you know, cover the board as much as possible. And there you go. Really nice and clean edges, really nice and flat. Look at that. Look at how nice that is. Look at that. Hey, there's even a cool shot right here, right? Huh? Hey, how you doing? How you doing? So that's cool. We got one side. How about we do another side? And then what I'll do is I'll call up Sheila, get her out of bed and ask her to be like, can you jump in front of the lens so I can show this off? And we'll talk about how to either manage this lighting-wise or with what lenses too, because the lens is gonna matter when you have a background this small for a portrait. So let's do this. I found this other piece of paper, so I'll have like a red side and a blue side. Ooh. All right, so I guess Seth just click this into a time lapse. All right, so that is a double-sided board. I have to trim this side, but I'll do that, you know, whatever. We have red and we have the blue, all nice and flat. Hey, and a quick pro tip to anybody who buys spray glue, if you know, I think a lot of us know this, but it does go without saying, when you're done with the spray glue, or if you're gonna leave it sit for a little bit, hold it upside down and just spray it into a garbage or outside or whatever, and just clear out the nozzle. Because I think everybody can relate to spending a bunch of money on spray glue and then the whole thing is clogged up to death. The next time you go to use it, you only use about this much and you're like, what? So do yourself a favor and just clear that nozzle out for you. All right, I'm gonna trim this up. Then how about we grip it up and we shoot it with Sheila. We'll see just what really affects this as far as lens goes and what we can do as far as positioning this to the model. Like, do we put them right up against it? Do we put it a little bit farther away? And don't forget, you can just do this right to a V flat and it stands up on its own. Right there, V flat, just sitting up on its own. So you can totally get this done and have a freestanding background wherever you want. Even if you already own a V flat and you're like, you know what, I never used the white side or the black side of this. This is something you can do to make a background that can stand on its own almost anywhere. And V Flat World makes foldable V flats. You've seen that in my soundboard video. I'll put that link down below. And they make it really easy for you to have a V flat that doesn't take up so much space that you can store somewhere. So consider that. And yeah, all right, let's get Sheila in here and let's see what we can do as far as the position of this to our model, using one light, using multiple lights, or just the lens selection as far as the compression of the background. Let's go jump into that. All right, so we made our backdrop and I got Sheila to come hang out with us and we're just gonna take some shots. What? Okay, all right, so she just woke up, her eyes might be a little puffy. We don't put bad comments about that, right? We're good, okay, all right. Well, thank you for joining us. We are going to use this backdrop we just made with Sheila. So how are we gonna grip this up? There's a bunch of different ways for us to do this. And one of them is either you can just tape it to a wall or staple it or whatever. I've seen people even put Velcro on them and snap them to walls. But we have a double-sided backdrop here. And if we're in a studio, we can use a C-stand to do that. And if you haven't seen already, I have a C-stand video that shows this as well, but we'll get into it here. So when you have a knuckle, one of the best things you can do is loosen this up and put the foam core right here, not here, because this will put a bite on your board and it'll start wrecking it. Here, it may squish it, but at least it won't be putting like dents and full on like bites into the board. So here's what we're gonna do. We are going to stretch this out over the high leg. Remember, whenever an arm goes out, we put it over the high leg. Now we have an option here. We can either go vertical or horizontal. Now, first of all, I think we're gonna actually go with the blue, just cause, why not? And I'm actually think I'm gonna start with the vertical, but obviously you're gonna do this however you see fit. I find with the horizontal, while it is nice to get some horizontal portraits, you're really limited as far as any sort of angle up or angle down or anything. So I tend to go with the vertical. And this also takes me back to those days when I was using plywood for this. And also, if you're gonna do this with a V-flat, odds are it's going to be vertical anyway. So let's do it in a vertical formation. I'm gonna open up this knuckle and we're going to go right to the flat part, right in the middle. And I'm just going to close down, but I'm gonna go kind of soft. I'm not gonna really crush it. I just need it to get snug in there. And you want it to be as square as possible. Now, all you need is a nice little A-clamp. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna use this all black one so it's not so unsightly if it gets in the frame. And we're just gonna boop right there onto the arm. And so we have a whole stable board. We can even pivot it one way or the other if we wanna change the reflection we're getting on this type of paper, as you can see it in the video. But I'm going to put it as square as I can because that's kind of the best starting point, is you know how the board's gonna act, you know how the substrate's going to reflect. Now we're gonna put it right behind Sheila. Now, Sheila is relatively tall, so I'm 6'1", she's about 6 feet, I'd say. You don't really want to set the background so it's like even with your subject's head. You want to treat it like it's a background, like as if you hung some paper. So we're going to go a little higher than that. And the way I go, like as a good rule of thumb, is the bottom of a board this size, just a board this size, is middle of the spine, kind of like right below the shoulder blades, is where I put the bottom of the board so that I can kind of shoot up. Actually, it's kind of a little too tall. There we go. So I can, this way, if you're gonna do any type of beauty shot up, you have that ability. Now, the other thing is how close we put it to her and how square. You wanna get as square as possible. The reason that is, if you're going to light forward, like we are right now with this beauty dish, you want it to hit kind of flat. You don't want it to go from one side of the board to the other and have inverse square happen where the board gets bright and gradiates to dark, unless you want that effect. But let's start off super square as we can. And before I even take a shot, why don't we just do this with the natural light? Because one of the easiest things you can possibly do before you even do something like this is just have the board here, face your model with the windows lighting your model. The closer we go, like my back would be to the windows, I'd have Sheila, then the board, and I would just click, 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 click. You've seen a lot of headshots like that, right? Just window light. And some people in this that are watching this might just do window light. So that's totally an option. Why don't I just do that now? It just won't be flat light. It'll be coming from her right side. So let's get my Nikon Z6 II right here. I have a 24-to-120 f4 lens on it. Now, the length of the lens will actually impact this backdrop because it's such a small backdrop. The longer that lens is, the more leeway you have as far as that backdrop filling the space. I'm not gonna get into a debate about this. It's not really compressing the space, it's just a perspective. And because it's such a long lens relative to how close I am to Sheila, the background appears to be larger. So let's take a shot in just ambient light, see what I'm even getting as an exposure. So I can open up all the way, f4, and it looks like I'm gonna slow my shutter down to 100th, and I'm at ISO 100, and boom, let's take a look. You get this this really flat light because we're just using the window light, but it's a very like wishy, dreamy type backdrop because it's such a busy backdrop with a shallow depth of field, right? But I'm not really digging the way the light looks on her, but you might like that natural look, or you could change the position of Sheila and the background to the windows if you want to do natural light like that. However, I already have this beauty dish set up, so we're gonna use it, guys. And what I'm gonna do is eliminate all the light in the space, including the light that's filming me right now and the window light that's ever changing in this room. I'm sorry if this video looks a little jumpy from the light changing so much. We're gonna close down to f8. We're gonna speed up our shutter speed, and we're gonna get a black frame going on from this mirrorless camera. What a marvel of technology. So it's reading as a black frame. Put the trigger on, lock it down, go into TTL, and let's get a shot with the strobe only. And let's take a look. And now you're seeing the difference we're getting here is a strobe that keeps everything nice and tight. A closed down aperture gives us more of the background, right? Like we actually have the background showing some definition as opposed to over here. Of course, there is gonna be a color tone difference. The warmth of what's happening here now as I'm getting into golden hour because the day is ending, but that is pure clean light and a nice tight backdrop. I'm also shooting at 120 millimeters, which is causing that background to fill the space. If I stood at the same spot and I zoomed out to, let's say, I don't know, let's go 50 millimeters, you'll see how much it doesn't fill up. The background obviously is gonna start showing the knuckle over here, right? And the edge of it. You might even like that look. I mean, it's up to you guys, but to me, it's kind of the illusion is kind of getting that backdrop going. So depending on how close you put it to her will also dictate how much of the zone that they're in is part of the exposure. What do I mean? I know, relax, breathe. Think of it this way. I'm shooting Sheila with this light. Therefore, my exposure is primarily on Sheila. Since this board is about 10 inches away from her back, they're technically within the same zone. And that's why the exposure is kind of the same on these shots so far. But what happens if I move it farther away? Well, if I do that, we're now separating them into two different zones here. She is roughly 2.5 feet from this beauty dish. Now, instead of a few inches, she's about, I'm gonna say 2.5, 3 feet away from the backdrop. But the backdrop is easily 6 feet away from the light. So if she's in exposure for f8, odds are over here, it's probably a couple stops away, maybe, give or take. Let's take a look at what we get. It's going to be underexposed. I'm telling you that guy right now, guys. I'm gonna stretch my lens out as far as it goes, 120. I'm going to focus on Sheila's beautiful, beautiful eyes. And let's take a shot. Boom, you see that? So here's where it was that's where we are. And this is all because of the distance, right? This also limits how much of that background is even in the shot. So if I was to go back to my 50 millimeter where we were before, you obviously will see the whole background setup. If you wanted that, it's there too if you want that kind of a shot. But you guys see what's happening here, right? So it's not just a matter of the perspective of the lens filling the background, but it's also a matter of if I'm using a single light, it affects the exposure on that background. You could easily throw in another light. Why don't we do that? This is a Profoto B10. I'm just going to drop it pretty low and then just pitch it up towards this backdrop. We'll put it into a separate group because they're separate zones. And we will start it off relatively low. Now, why would I do this? Well, the reason I would do this is instead of worrying about the distance games I'm playing, I can actually control the whole exposure of that background based on what I set that light to, or I can even gel that light and change the color of that background completely. All right, so we want to make sure that background is square to everybody, right? To the light, to Sheila. Let's take a look at what this is going to look like. I'm not even going to meter that light. I'm not even going to TTL it. I'm just going for it. I don't know. We're crazy. We're crazy over here. But it'll be a totally different effect. And you can actually see how much that light blew out, right? So if I go into that light and I drop it down like 2.5 stops, just so it's something that's there, you'll see that we get this gradation pattern now. So now we have a gradated background, which is really nice to have sometimes. Remember, this is what it looked like before, and then this is what it looked like right up against Sheila. So you can actually see that you go from this nice flat look with a sharper background, you can go into a more subdued, darker background, or you can even have a gradated background from the strobe we put in for the background, should you want it. Now, let's throw another wrench at this one. Why don't we throw a gel on that light back there? And probably what's gonna happen is it'll only affect the gold leaf or whatever that is on there. But hey, why not? And just to get a really stark difference, I just chucked a red gel on there. Let's just see what the red looks like. It's probably not gonna look that great, but you'll see what the gel is actually doing. So once again, stretching out to 120 mil. And now we have this bleed of red going to neutral, but we could also keep on refining that and move the light. So, okay, wow. This is going way longer than I thought it was, but I'm kind of hoping you're getting this is the vibe of the channel, is that I can show you a bunch of ABC stuff, or we can kind of keep on going on a tangent, which if you guys like tangents, stick with the video. If not, you're free to just stop watching at any time. I'm going to pull this light right back to Sheila, and I'm going to pitch it upward even more. Actually, you know what? I'm not even gonna pitch it upward. I'm just gonna boost it higher and put it right behind her shoulder blades. And that'll put it more in line with the background. So here's what I'm doing. I'm basically making the spread of that background light go wider so it covers more area on the board. So when I shoot this, it's not just a little bit of a glow, it's more of a gradated glow, a little more even on our background. Let's take a shot at this. And you can see how it starts creeping up, right? So we were here and then we go to here just from moving the light closer to Sheila, then closer to the backdrop. Closer to the backdrop, less spread of light, more centralized. Closer to Sheila, covers the background more. I mean, we could even go, just do one more. I know. I appreciate you help me out, all right? Relax. Thank you. We're okay, I'm recording. Stop. All right. So what I can do is even move this light a little taller and pitch this light a little more up. And what that does is it gives me a little more room to shoot down instead of up. And when we do that, we get more of an even coverage of the red. And you can see that it creeps up even further, and you can actually even this out totally. How would I do that? Fine, let's end this video with an even red gradation, right? How would I do that? Simple. I'm gonna move this background a little more, because moving the background farther away is the same as moving that light farther from it, right? So I just have to make sure we're all squared up again. And I am going to stretch out this lens again. And now you can see that it's like really kind of creeping up there. So remember guys, we started out with daylight, which was golden hour-y, getting warm on me. at F4 with this soft bokeh background kind of a thing. Then we went to F8 where we got a sharper background and a more defined Sheila with the strobe and more neutral colored light with the strobe. You can see how much she leaned whiter with that. Then what we did was we moved that background back and we got the soft, the bokeh again from the distance of her to the background, which I hate saying that word, but whatever. You get what I mean. The out of focus area gets a little softer over here. Then what we did was we put in a backlight to bring back up the exposure, but keep that soft focus on the background. Then we threw a gel on that background to give it some kind of whatever, I don't know. And then we decided to make that background as even as we kind of could. I probably could even go even further, but this video is going way too long as it is. But you get my point. The whole thing here is distance. I don't know what to go. I don't know what to tell you guys. What did this video start out as? A portable temporary background or whatever? That was a few bucks in decorative paper, some spray glue, and a piece of foam core, and we're able to do all this different stuff just from the principles, right? So I'm hoping, this light is all weird now. Yeah, that's better, I guess. Maybe? Nah, not even. Just the principles of knowing what we're trying to do or what light will do if we change something can give us so many more options and variables to the shots. And that also means that Sheila can walk out of this studio with more than just what she asked for or thought she was gonna get. And it didn't take us any extra time if we knew, oh, if we move the light farther off the background, well, obviously it'll spread more. If we move the background from her, we know it'll get darker. If we wanna make it brighter, but still have the depth of field, well, we can close down, but we have to actually move the background farther away from her to then compensate for closing down the aperture, So there's all these different things. And the reason we closed down was to get rid of all the daylight that's dying on me right now and probably making this video look ridiculous. Anyway, all this stuff is core principles. And I hope you guys understand that when you guys say, hey, what is the power of that light set to or whatever, that means nothing. It's about why. It's about what happens if we do this. If we do this, what happens with that, right? So that background right there, you can get a bunch of different looks out of it just purely from playing with distance and your aperture, right? The length of your lens can make a big difference here as well. Of course, the length of the lens also affects your subject, right? You go too wide or you go wider rather, their features can start to look a little different. You go longer, their features start to look a little different as well. I don't know if this was helpful. I know I just went off on a total tangent. I did not expect this video to go that way, but I tend to go live more than I do edited stuff. And I would hope that when I do edited stuff like this, we can kind of go in a live format and be like, oh, this is pretty cool as well. And you can kind of see the in-between shots. I'm not into like, hey, look, click, it's done and it's awesome, yay, So anyway, I want to thank Sheila for hanging out with me today and getting out of bed to help me out with this shot. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, hit me with a comment down below. I'll do my best to answer them. I think this is just like a really fun thing for you to try out. It's a good thing to have on hand, especially if you do top downs, tabletop photography, maybe even like anything small. You have Etsy store product stuff. It's a really fun little thing to do. And if you want to do portraits, you can really get into it as well with this kind of deal going on right here. All right. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys did like this, please hit like. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to hit subscribe plus the bell to be notified when I drop new videos. I'm trying to do them as regular as I can. Follow me at Last X Witness on all social. You can check out my work at Instagram, Last X Witness. Join me on Twitter and for some discussion or live on Twitch with my photo community. And I know I'm just dragging this one out. We'll get dinner. All right, I promise. All right, pick a place. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Later. What's going on, everyone? Seth Miranda here, coming from my studio in Manhattan, and I'm here with another quick tip. This time with backdrops once again, but we're gonna talk about taping them down and saving you a tripping hazard, especially if you're someone that runs a lot of extension cords around. Now, you're gonna think this is pretty common sense, and some of you old school studio guys are definitely gonna be like, duh. But there's people that have been raised on battery powered lights and not running a lot of extension cords, and this is just kind of a set safety thing and also very helpful and useful. So the first thing, you roll down your backdrop how you want it. You tape down the two sides vertically, like along the side of the paper so that it gets a nice anchor point. And then what you're basically gonna do is if you're running an extension cord like this, think of this. You have a horizontal line you're gonna tape down anyway. So give yourself enough lead on either side of the extension cord and then tape it down with the paper like this. And just like that, you're gonna keep the, your extension cord taut, and you're also gonna keep your tape pretty taut. So just like taping down a cable in general, except you're doing it with the paper in one shot. So it'll save you a tripping hazard. It'll save you some extra gaff tape. That's expensive. I'm using 2-inch tape. So that's usually standard for taping down lines. If this was a high traffic set, or maybe if I just wanted to be super safe, I'd run another strip right in front of it so that it has a little more bite to the floor. But other than that, you saved yourself some headache with the extension cord. Everybody's safe and happy. And let me know if this was useful. I'll keep doing more of these quick tips. If you want to help this channel out though, hitting like definitely helps out. Drop me a subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified when I put up more videos like this. So let me know down in the comments if you guys have any tips you'd want me to jump into, or something you're having trouble with. I'll see what I can come up with, or if I have something I can film really quick, I'll do it. You can follow me at LastXWitness on all social. Check my work on Instagram, yell at me on Twitter, all that kind of stuff. But until the next time, check out the rest of the channel. There's a bunch of quick tips, a lot of live shoots so you can see things happening in front of your face. And yeah, I guess that's it. I will see you guys next time. Later. And speaking of gear stuff, that's kind of why I jumped on here right now. I'm done for the day here at the studio. It is a pile of gear over there. And then I realized while I was packing up, I always get asked questions about this one particular piece, and it is one of my most favored things I have on me all the time. I try to always keep it in a bag or a kit. And I think it's something that's super versatile and is often overlooked, usually because of price, or they just think there's a fail point to it, or they just never even tried one. So without further ado, I give you the articulating arm. Yeah, so this is one of my favorite things ever. You've probably seen them in every demo I ever do, or if you've seen any videos of me on the road, 100%, this is what comes out of my case. These are not essential, but they make things so much easier, and they're so versatile. They allow you to get away with things you wouldn't normally be able to get away with, and allow you to do some things that you probably wouldn't be able to do otherwise. What is an articulating arm? Well, it's just that. It's an arm that you can position however you want, and you can put gear on the other end, like a speed light or some other light, something lightweight. But I've seen a lot of different cases for this. A lot of pros use this for different rigging situations, maybe even putting a camera at the end. It's like a small light camera or whatever. Either way, it lets you mount something to something else and then position it however you want. And what's really great about it is you can position it in any position you want and freeze it there, instead of, I don't know, constantly having to fight with right angles of the stand goes up and the arm goes this way, or whatever the case is. There's no having to stop your workflow. If I have my light here, but I go, if I just had it a little bit over, then I just put a little bit over and I tighten it. There's no moving my footprint. There's no having to fight with raising something just to move something over. We've all been there, I think, especially if you're someone that works with C stands. It's very perpendicular in that world. This, however, is a great solution because, first of all, I should mention that this is a little customed out with what I have on the end of them, but you can do whatever you want with them as well. When I have this in my bag, it is literally like this. That means I get a 20-inch arm into this much space, which can go on the side of a backpack, inside a roller, whatever you want. There is some weight to it, I'm not gonna lie to you, but that's another thing. With these arms, you kind of get what you pay for. Actually, you definitely get what you pay for. If you cheapen out on arms, you're asking for your gear to break. It's on you. If there's any sort of plastic or something questionable material-wise, if it feels a little janky, a little light in weight, it probably is. And you're gonna be hanging things off of this. And like I say all the time, grip goes with you no matter what camera you use, whatever lens you use, whatever system you integrate with, whatever lights you change from, whether it's speed lights, studio strobes, brands, you go to constant lights, your grip still stays there for you. So I've had the same C stands and arms forever. This has been around the world, all over the place I think this has gotta be like a 7-year-old arm by now. And it still holds up perfect. It's amazing, I love it. So let me go over what I changed about it. Then I'm gonna go over some use cases, and then we'll go over some brands to look at and what you would look at when buying them. So An arm not only gives you the ability to have an arm off of your stand, but it also gives you the ability to make your stand taller. So if you're doing something like floor stands or lower lights, you're able to manipulate the position of the light just beyond the range of the stand you're using, whether it's a tall stand, a floor stand, or whatever. So it's a really useful tool in that regard. Now on this one, however, I should let you know that I did put this 5/8 female socket here, and 5/8 is the size of the post that is on every light stand, including C stands. So that right there shows you that you're able to mount any female socket from a light. That means any studio strobe or something like that, you'll be able to mount it to the post. But I put a female post on here so that I can put this onto anything rather than looking for a female socket. Because if I walk in and this is my stand, I don't have a grip arm with a 5/8 socket, this doesn't go onto this. Male to male, it's not really gonna work out. Watch those comments. This, however, is a receiver. I mean, done. And I'm on the stand, no matter what kind of stand I carry with me. On the other end, I put a cold shoe. Now, what's really versatile about the cold shoe is I can take it off completely, and that'll leave me with a bare 5/8 post, which is great if I just wanted to mount this to a stand and extend that stand. But if I have something like a speed light, I can't, there's no way to mount this to that. So this was my answer to having like a ton of umbrella adapters, which after a while, you know, umbrella adapters, you take like a few of these, they start adding up and creating, you know, taking space in your bag, when this whole setup does what this does, except way more. So why wouldn't I just, you know, do something like this? Or I could even put the umbrella adapter on here and have an umbrella adapter, a receptacle for an umbrella if I wanted to in that position. So what's great about this though, is if I wanted to, not only can I mount a speed light to it if I wanted to, and you just tighten down the shoe on this side, lock, and then lock your speed light. Don't lock it and then tighten this down. You could break the lock on your foot of your flash. You always want to tighten this down first, then lock it. Not only can I mount the speed light here and then put it anywhere I want, ideally, but I could also completely take off the shoe and leave it to be a 1/4-20 itself. This allows for an insane amount of versatility. Anything that has something like this can actually be mounted to this. This is a Profoto B10, so this is bigger than a speed light. I can actually just mount this to this, come straight up if I wanted to. I could also use the 5/8 mount that comes with it, like almost every light now, and have the pivot point if I wanted to, or I could save the space in my bag and just take this, and this becomes my pivot point, and I just put it right onto a C stand. Now that's way bigger than a speed light. Let's just do this so it looks cooler. And I can put it in whatever position I want, you know, and it'll hold it there. This is invaluable. I mean, it's totally stable, it's holding its own, and I can put it in unique positions, you know, really fine tune where I want my light to go. Remember, I'm not a fix and post kind of guy. I like to light and get that light in camera. And so every little bit of an angle really matters to me. Having this extra versatility, just go boom. Okay, cool, we got that shot. Now let's say I want to do something with like a creepier look. Okay, cool, so let's drop it down, and I will then mount it from underneath if I wanted to. I'd go even lower than that, mount it underneath, and then have a fill light, and then have another one that's a key light. And it can go on and on and on. But the thing is, you just aren't limited by the position of right angles from a stand or just like a pivot point, and that's all you have. So that's a huge bonus to me in any case. And I don't know if it is to you, but now think of it this way. This is a $1,600 light at the time of recording this video. I don't want to put this on some shady arm that will fail and swing my light down and crash, right? So skimping on the articulated arm is completely a bad idea. You guys need to really assess if this is for you and if you want it to stay in your kit for a good amount of time and not, you know, potentially damage the rest of your gear. So let me just dismount this, and I'm going to show you one more thing about it that's really interesting. And by the way, another thing that has a 1/4-20 mount on it, something like, I don't know, these little pocket lights, or maybe a little camera like a GoPro or, type vloggy type cameras. Maybe you're trying to set up a live streaming setup, or you have some sort of precarious position, or maybe you're in an area where you can't put a stand down. What if I told you didn't have to compromise that? What if I told you you could take this, I'm doing this backwards now just to save time, but you could take a super clamp, put it right into this, and remember, there's always like a flat side to these. You want to make sure that this knob goes into the flat part, tighten it down, and then you can literally make almost anything a stand. I can actually mount two things to one stand. I can put something up here, and I can clamp this down to the C stand, and voila. I now have something I can mount here and something I can mount here. So what is that good for? Well, if you've watched any of my live demos for Tether tools, I used to mount or I still do, or even my Pro Photo A10 video on Adorama TV. I mount the light here, and then I put a reflector on here. There's a 1/4-20 on the Lastolite Halo, screw it right onto here. I now have a 3-foot reflector I can move however I want, and a light I can move however I want with 2 articulating arms, 1 stand, and there you go. Endless possibilities. It really is this stopgap. It's this thing that you don't wonder if you can get it done. You just go in there and do it because you have so much flexibility, which is kind of, it's like, it's flexible, but no, it really, you do. You have a ton of flexibility. In fact, I think Dan Norton did a video in the subway where he clamped a light to the subway I-beam and didn't have to use any stands. And here in New York, if you want to use any kind of stands on the ground, you need a permit. He bypassed that. He just clamped it up, and it wasn't a problem. And it was this really small kit, a speed light, an arm, and a clamp. This isn't too bad to pack, guys, especially if you're running a roller kit. Look, done. And then I have a light I can put on anything. One of my favorite things to use is the back of a chair and then move the chair around like it's a light stand, but I have all this ability to go higher or lower, all sorts of stuff. So there's so many things you could do with this. I've even seen people mount mics to these, like they're almost like their podcast arms or whatever. It's just something that's super versatile that you can keep in your bag. And if you're ever in a like, can I do this? I don't know. You kind of think about this for a little bit and you go, you know what? Actually, I can totally do it. So this is the Matthews Noga. This is the one that I go to all the time. Another one that is really well known that a lot of people use is this Manfrotto 244. Again, I fitted it out with a socket and a shoe. And pro tip for all you TTL type people out there, put some gaff tape on your cold shoe, because no matter what brand light you have, I don't care if it's budget or pro, if you keep the pins from touching a bunch of metal, you take down the error rate for TTL, because the flash can sometimes get confused, sometimes in weird settings. Just put a quick piece of gaff there, stop the metal from touching the metal. That's all, just a quick tip. So the thing about this one is you get this really big knob, and the big knob's cool. It gives you a lot of torque, like you have a lot of leverage with it. However, it is a little more cumbersome to pack, so I tend not to always grab this one to put into a kit. It does take up a good amount of space this way. It's a little awkward in the bag, but what it does give you is the ability to actually fine tune how you want your arm to act. Like, let's say you want your arm to be tight here, but you want to be able to move the ball joint more. You can actually calibrate it, so to speak. It's a little tricky, but it's cool that you can do it. And Manfrotto is legendary for their craftsmanship. I mean, this arm has been around forever. It might actually be one of the oldest arms in the industry, honestly. And I know NASA uses their articulating arms. And Manfrotto makes two versions of this, one that's variable friction and one that you actually set with an Allen key and then lock it down, and then that's it. So you actually set the tension with it, and then you just flip a lever rather than having a variable friction. So maybe that's something you want to look into if you're looking to lock something down and not have a constant ability to move it. That might be something you want to look at. And then the third one that I recommend and that I used to like probably more than any other arm, because I bought multiples of them because of the price point. So those two right there are anywhere from like $150 to $200 each at a US at the time of this recording. But like I said, I feel like it's worth it. This one actually is only about $90 last I checked at the time of this recording. This is the oldest one. They don't even have this logo anymore, but this is the Tether Tools Master Articulating Arm. And what makes this one different is you have the same calibration stuff here if you want to mess with it, but you actually get these teeth here. I don't know if you guys can see that. Can you see that? I probably gotta get a frame because it's checking my face detection. But some people love that, some people hate it. For me, it's kind of cool because you can really just kind of settle it in a little bit. The down point to that is if you crank on this thing, there's a chance that you can seize because the teeth are kind of like putting a lot of pressure on each other. But some people really like that. This is a really solid arm. It is the lowest cost one that I still trust. So I would take a look at that. Either Tether Tools, Matthews Noga, which is solid as a rock. And Matthews, by the way, is the brand of every rental house because rental houses know it'll hold up over time and all the people beating it up and they'll still get their return on investment from Matthews. But Matthews is a really industry standard. And then of course there's Manfrotto 244 arm. I'll put links to all this stuff below. But basically, I'm trying to stop saying so much, and I just did anyway. Basically what you're getting here is a really flexible, versatile extension to grip you're probably already using, and it gives you the ability to mount almost anything. So whether you're doing video, photo, you're doing strobes, you're doing constant, you're doing audio, I mean anything, you'd be surprised what you can do with an articulating arm, and that's one of the reasons I always have them in my kit. And I never really go to a location without them because sometimes you might not be able to use stands at all and you can clamp up like crazy, and that's basically where I think the articulating arm kind of all started. I guess I should tell you this also. These are not the same thread. All articulating arms, at least any credible ones, this is a 1/4-20. This is a 3/8 thread. So this is a smaller thread, the same size that goes on a tripod, you know, the tripod to a camera or what's on the bottom of your camera. And this is a 3/8, which is a larger thread size, which is for other things. This, I wouldn't want this on a smaller thread anyway. This is gonna be the base of my light. And also one other quick thing, I keep on finding things to add. With the 5/8 receptor, most of them have 2 mounting points, which is super cool. So you can actually, if you wanted to, instead of mounting it vertical, you can mount it horizontal and have the ability to, I don't know, maybe, I don't even know why you would want to do that because you actually have a ball point here that you can mess around with. So I don't know why you would do that, but some people might need it for some weird reason. I don't know. Anyway, that's my spiel on articulating arms, I guess. I guarantee you as soon as I hit this button, I'm gonna go, oh yeah, there was that other thing. I should have mentioned this and that. Well, I actually did forget something. So you can actually get a pretty low cost adapter of a 1/4-20 to cold shoe, and these are super useful as well because you have a female thread 1/4-20 at the end of the 5/8 post on this end of an articulating arm. So you just feed this in, screw it down so it's secure, and then you have yourself any cold shoe camera can then be adapted to the end of your arm. And this is super useful for like weird situations in the field that you need some clearance here for whatever reason, or you need the 1/4-20 on the bottom of the camera free to grip something else, like maybe a radio trigger or whatever. You can of course just put this camera wherever you need it and get the grip out of the way a little bit more and just have the camera free floating there. Good for top-down type stuff and just putting the camera wherever you need. It's also good for things like, you know, gripping into a truss system in a ceiling or whatever so that you can get an angle that you might be looking for a little easier. But it's just another option out there, and it's not a lot of money to adapt the articulating arm to do this. So I just feel like articulating arms are these things that keep the versatility and your abilities open when you're out there in the field, or if you're just trying to grip something in a permanent setting even to give you just a bit of edge where you can't reach something or fit something somewhere. And this is just another thing you can do. It's just endless. But let me know down below if this was helpful to you. Let me know if you want me to go through some other grip out there. I know I do these kind of sloppy because I do not like to do any scripts. I just like to go off the cuff. I've been using these for so long and I've been in this industry for so long. I feel like it's the best way to do it is just straight off the cuff because I mean, that's kind of what all this is anyway. Anyway, oh, look at me. There we go. Anyway, that is articulating arms. So if you guys have any other recommendations for articulating arms, put them in the comments down below. I would love to see what everyone else is out there is using. These are the ones that I've been using for so long. I haven't had a problem yet, but there are some pretty questionable ones out there, and really don't skimp. Even if you go like, oh, I'm only using it for this, I'm telling you, it's one way or another. You just want to have an arm that lasts, instead of going, I worked for this one job and it fell apart or whatever, or I only need to hold up this super light thing. Cool, spend the extra 20 bucks, spend the extra whatever, and make sure you have something that works for you and doesn't cause you issues or grief or stress, or you're just waiting for it to fail. Okay, well, that's gonna do it for me, guys. I know this video probably went way too long, and I keep on thinking there's something I'm missing, so I'm dragging this video out. But this is one of these things in grip that changed everything for me. So, do me a favor, hit like if you like this video. Don't forget to hit subscribe and the bell for more videos like this. My name's Seth Miranda. Join me at Last X Witness on all social. Check me out on Instagram, write me out on Twitter, join me live on Twitch, and come join my Discord channel. If you're a total photo nerd, video nerd, come hang out, share some work, let us know where you're from, let us know what you're using. If you have any problems with the gear you're currently using, I guarantee you there's somebody in this Discord that has an answer for you, including myself. So thank you so much for your time, everybody. I will see you next time. Peace. What's going on, everyone? Seth Miranda here at my studio in Manhattan with a bunch of Autopoles set up. Why? Because that's what this video is about today. If you don't know who I am, I'm a pro photographer right here in New York. You can check out some of my work at Last X Witness on Instagram, yell at me on Twitter, join me live on Twitch, all the same name, Last X Witness. And if you're into stuff like photo or lighting or anything like that, go ahead and check out some videos on this channel. You might like it, and hit subscribe if you do. All right, now that that's out of the way, what is up with all these Autopoles? Well, what are Autopoles? And I know a bunch of you are rolling your eyes right now like, oh, I'm a photographer of 30 years and I know everything in the world and Autopoles or whatever. Yeah, they're staples to us. You know, they're like C stands to us. They're just typical standard. They should always be in every studio type grip, right? Or even home studios or anything. I'm gonna get into all that cool stuff. But the reason I felt the need to do a video on them was because we're in the era of people who are coming from basically their phone to whatever camera some schmuck with a dumb haircut on a YouTube channel told them to buy, and they've never assisted anyone, worked on a set, rented a studio, been in a studio. And there's been plenty of times, especially in here when I've done workshops, where at least 2 or 3 people like take me to something like, hey, what are these things? And it's kind of astonishing when you're around something every day, you kind of forget, oh, maybe some people don't know about this. It's not something they see all the time. Well, Autopoles are awesome. When I first heard of Autopoles when I was a kid, I was like, oh, do you just press a button and they're like, wah. No, they're not automatic like that. They are just mechanical, and they come in various heights. They come in various colors. There's different latch mechanisms and all sorts of stuff like that. But what is the basis of an Autopole? What does it do? Well, basically it's this. It lets you put a pole wherever you might need one. And what does that allow you to do? Well, it allows you to put up a structure without disturbing the space. So I can run 2 of these, put a crossbar on it, and boom, I have the ability to hang a backdrop. But not only that, I can hang other things from it too. And when we're doing stuff on cool locations or like beautiful antique buildings and stuff like that, or whatever you want to call them, old architecture, whatever, you can't start drilling into walls and stuff. I don't care what permits you got or how well you know the guy who owns the place. You can't do that. Although, talk to some of my DP friends out there, the indie guys, and they just carry a hammer drill just in case. But really, think of it this way. If I wanted to have people sitting at a table in the middle of a room and light a scene for them, and I'm in a restaurant, I don't have the right lights that I want, I can put one of these in either corner, run a bar across it, which I'm going to show you in a second how to do that, and then I can put in lightweight light fixtures of some kind to create the atmosphere I want without disturbing my environment. But the really main reason people use this is background stands. So I think what people don't realize is these are varying in price from about $100 to $200, depending on what you get. Manfrotto has been like the staple in making these, but there's plenty of other brands out there. I think Coupa makes them. There's third-party brands with no name that makes them and all that stuff. Obviously, you get what you pay for. I've had the same Manfrotto ones forever. I think that the really great build quality, and I think I've never regretted anything Manfrotto, to be honest with you. But they do go up in price. You're talking about maybe like $60 more in the grand scheme of things, but I haven't really seen them go over $200. They do come in like black, silver. I've seen them in white. I've seen them in other different colors. Sometimes people paint them just because they're gonna be in a room and forever and they just want them to match the room so they look like pipes maybe. But they come in various heights as well. So some of them might only go up to 9 feet in height. Some of them might go up to 12 feet. There are extension poles to make them even taller. But here, I feel like I got off on a tangent there. With the background stand systems, they can go $200, $300 and you're stuck with like usually a janky system isn't that great and they take up a footprint. So these on either end just have these rubber cups that might leave marks on your ceiling. And by the way, that's how you know if someone's been filming in an area or something used to be a studio or you're in a studio. If you see marks like this, you know that someone's been throwing auto poles around and used the place for filming or shooting of some kind. It's kind of funny actually. I think that's like our telltale when we walk into like a pier space and we're like, oh, someone's totally been using this to shoot. Anyway, or an Airbnb. Oh my God, don't even get me started. Okay, so pretty much with the background systems or just stands in general, you're talking about, you know, a circumference of space on the floor for the legs to spread out to sustain themselves, right? Well, these just go up and down and flush to the wall. So when you're using a background system, you usually have to be off the wall by maybe even a foot, and then you lose room in the room. You lose actual footprint area to actually build your set. So if you're someone in like here in New York with a small apartment and you're trying to put up backdrops all the time, if you have a background system, you're already killing a foot or two of space that you might not even have. That can be 10% of your room in some cases, right? This lets you go right against the wall and run a crossbar and you're as close to the wall as you can without, aside from like just taping the background up. If you've seen my other videos where I can show you how to put up a background, you tape the end of it up and let it roll down the wall. That's cool, but obviously that's like a temporary setup in a really if you need to situation. But if you want to have the roll up here and let it cascade down and be able to cut it when you want to, this is probably your best bet. And not to mention, when you're not using the background, you can use them for other things, or you can have multiple backgrounds. You could put one set of this on one side of the wall for maybe a color, right? You do something vibrant like an orange or a yellow, blue, whatever, and then another set on the other side, and that can be your gray paper, your neutrals or whatever, like that, you know, thing like that. And then all you're doing is asking your subject to go from one side to the other, and you're getting more shots out of it, right? And this is investment. This is things that you know you're gonna have for the long haul. No matter what camera system you use, no matter what lights you buy, whatever you change over wise, it doesn't matter, these stay the same. It's grip. Grip stays with you forever, and you can always sell it, to be honest with you. People buy these all the time, secondhand and stuff like that. But how do these actually work? Well, this is how it is packed up. It's very lightweight. It obviously doesn't take up a lot of room. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to the ceiling by opening up this lever. Am I on camera? Yeah, I'm in frame. And you just let it go all the way up. It hits the ceiling and you push it in. And then once you push this lever down, it goes up just another ½ inch and that creates the tension. So that is what you get. So obviously, this probably isn't even straight to be honest with you, but obviously you don't put up a ton of weight on this, right? You're not gonna watch and boom, it's down. So this isn't meant to be like, let's hang a whole Are sky panel off of this thing. No, but I can hang something light like clip lights, or maybe even run a microphone across the room. Or if I don't want to put something like truss into the wall to run cabling, if I'm doing something that's just for just for now, something that's not there forever, or maybe it's just something that's in like a room in your house that you're doing for a podcast and you want to film it but have nothing in the way. You can set up from end to end, put the crossbar and run your cabling across, and now it's out of your way, no tripping hazards, stuff like that. Let's talk about getting that crossbar though. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. There actually is more than a couple of ways, but I'm gonna give you like the most common ways. These are super clamps, right? Super clamps are super. No, they're another staple, and Dan Norton, I think, has a super clamp video on his channel. You can check him out, Daniel Norton Photographer. If you guys really want me to do a super clamp video, write me a comment below and maybe I'll do it. But what's cool about these is not only do they clamp to everything, but you can get J hooks for them. J hooks are great because they go right into your 5/8 socket. You tighten them down, and then all you got to do is put them onto your auto pole. You want to put it here. You put it up here, obviously, so you can backlight can be higher. And then the crossbar goes here. And you can use anything. We here in this studio, we use these giant wooden dowels all the time. Some people use just straight up pipes, which are cool too. Or anything that just goes across that stays rigid, that doesn't weigh a lot. Easy. I mean, you can get really cheap pipe to do that. And then you put your paper on it, use an A clamp to hold it where you want it, and then that's it. But this is not just the end all, because you can also put a J hook onto an auto pole. And like I said, if you're in a situation that you are on location, you don't want to carry around a giant 10, 11 foot dowel or pipe, you can have another auto pole, and the auto pole will fit in it as well. So now I can extend this across the room and have a crossbar for whatever I might need. I think one of the coolest things I saw was someone using it to do a whole microphone setup for a bunch of people at a table, and they all had their own microphone pointing at them and stuff like that. I was like, because I don't usually set up audio too much. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But I've seen plenty of times people put lighting on them. I've seen people rig all sorts of things that aren't that heavy. I've seen people put GoPros on them, all sorts of stuff. I've even seen people rig them to put signage up so that people that are not part of the location that we're at, because it might look like it's a public place, kind of get a warning of like, don't come in here. It's like, you know, when you're on location, you're working with a crew, like all bets are off. Whatever works, works, right? I wouldn't say that this is the most stable thing on earth. I wouldn't trust this for everything, and also check the specs of what you're doing as far as will it work. When it comes to using them for just straight backgrounds though, what you wanna do is make sure you get 2 auto poles that are the same, and you can actually buy them in sets to save a little bit of money. I think they come in 2 or 4, but you wanna make sure that the flange over here is all the same, and then you're going to basically just tighten down your super clamp with the J hook on it like that, and you're pretty much good to go, because wherever you put this, if the ceiling is the same height, then it should be at the same level as the other J hook, right? So that's basically what you do, is you level them before you put it up, then you put it up, they're level if the room is level, because if there's like an I-beam or something like 2 feet lower, you're gonna have to eyeball it a little bit. It usually doesn't need that much precision. The other option you have besides J hooks, which is pretty interesting, is you can take 2 super clamps like this. These are another thing that I feel are just staple, right? Like you should have at least one. They're super useful, they're super dependable. You can do so many things with them, they're very versatile. You've seen me talk about them in the articulating arm video. If you haven't seen that video, check out the link below. You'll see how Dan Norton used them in the subway to rig a light up without stands. So they're super useful, right? And especially with something that's just a straight up pole, you can clamp anything to them, right? Within reason, remember, keep weight in mind when you're doing something like off of the auto pole. If it's not braced like one to another one, is that how you say hi to everybody? Jeez. So keep that in mind. You don't want to have too much weight coming off of it, because they're not really in there for good. They're just a temporary press fit. Anyway, you can set them up with the 5/8 post in the socket, and then take the other one and set it up basically perpendicular. And when you set it up perpendicular, 90 degrees, you like those words? Let's tighten this down just to get this so I don't look like a complete schmuck when it fails. Basically, just get it onto the auto pole, clamp it down, and then look, I have an open clamp here to run another pole lateral, whatever I want, really. I mean, I can set up whatever I can clamp on here within reason, but you know, you really kind of want to just use like another auto pole. You can do that. You can just put it in there and then tighten this down. And then next thing you know, I have an auto pole that can then go into another auto pole over here or something like that. If I don't have a wall, right? If I'm not press fitting this into another wall or structure or anything like that, this lets me have a freestanding crossbar for whatever I need. And keep in mind, that's kind of what grip is to be able to build what you need to work to rig to support things no matter where you are. So you kind of just want to get really familiar with grip, know what your options are, the different clamps, the different stands. I just hit myself in the temple with that. That was great. Now I should actually mention this. This is one of types of the auto poles. I think this is the newer kind. There's a few different kinds, but the most common I'd say is this. Some don't have this red button, but I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. This red button right here, once you open this up, pull it all the way, and then you're ready to clamp it down, you'll actually see it goes an extra ½ inch, right? Well, this is the release. So in order to actually release it from the structure, I have to push this in, then pull this out, and I'm good to go. It takes off all the pressure. So just keep that in mind. Some other ones are just like a harder press. It goes like over a bump and then settles in like a bearing. But this, I think, is the newest kind. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know down in the comments. You guys tell me that anyway. Let me know when I'm wrong anyway. So yeah, that's kind of pretty much it. There's a lot of other tricks. I want to keep these videos a little shorter. They tend to do better when they're shorter. If you have any other weird setups or tips or tricks that you've been doing with Autopoles, let me know down below. I mean, it's always great to learn from other people, and it's infinite, right? There's always a variable. No set is ever the same. And that's kind of where you start growing your experience level, where you go, oh, this worked that time, maybe it'll work in this space or something like that. I love Autopoles. Don't take them off as an option, because I know some people get intimidated by like bigger grip, and it's not something fun like, oh, look, a lens that gives me more bokeh or something stupid, or presets or whatever. Think about this. If you're in a small space constantly shooting, this will let you do more in the small space. That means everything you're doing gets an upgrade. Think about that. If you're in a room that only has 10 feet of space to shoot in and you're using a background stand, you really only have about 8 feet to work in now. This will get you as close to the wall without having to drill into that wall and losing your security deposit. Just saying. All right, guys, I think that's gonna do it for me. I'm gonna leave some links down below for a few options as far as getting Autopoles go. If you have any questions, hit me with a comment down below. If you like this video, don't forget to like, it really helps out this channel. If you like this video as well, check out some other videos on this channel. I'm really trying to grow it, and I've been putting in some effort into the production value and stuff like that. So hope you guys are into it. Don't forget to share this video around, that helps as well. Hit subscribe plus the bell to get notified more videos like this come out. And I'll see you guys next time. Later. All right, I'm gonna tell them. All right. Stop. You are easily replaced. Easily. Unbelievable. What's going on, everyone? Seth Miranda here in my studio in Manhattan with Sheila, and we are here like really after hours. There is no more sunlight coming in this daylight studio. That's why it looks pretty dark in here, but we're gonna fix that. So this is something that's super easy, relatively low cost, and actually a lot of fun and kind of organic, because you never really have full control in this situation, but that's kind of the fun of it. In this day and age, I feel like everybody has some sort of little pocket light, whether it be something like this, which is the Nanlite SC, Lidolite SC. It's a little tiny pocket light, very lightweight, but it's RGBW. It has all the colors in it you could want in a little tiny form factor, and it can actually cycle through the colors. I also have this Nanlite Pavo tube, this 10-inch tube. So this is around $100. And what's really funny about this one is it's magnetic. So if you were in a hard spot, you could actually just throw it on like a metal door or something. Like it's just a lot of fun, but it also has a quarter 20 on it. Either way, this also lets me cycle through colors. So these are constant light sources, and with the lights completely out and outside, which means no sunlight coming in here, which is a constant light source, we can play with some lower powered constant light sources. So once you have control over your space completely, you can actually adjust your exposure relatively easily for light sources that might not be so dominant otherwise. We're gonna mix some strobes in here. So here's what we're gonna do. 2 zones, which we talk about a lot, right? Zone 1 is Sheila, because you're always number 1. I don't care what they say about you, you're always number 1. Zone 1, Sheila. Zone 2, the back wall. So what we have to do is kind of play a game of balance. On the back wall, we're gonna throw one, maybe both of these back there and rotate the color. We're gonna get an exposure for that in our camera, and then we're gonna bring in the strobes and match the exposure we need for the aperture. This is kind of how you do it. You kind of get the exposure for the lower powered light source first, and then you bring in your higher powered. That way you can always dial back your strobe, but you can't ever dial up the constant light or the lower powered light, right? Makes sense. You can always take away power from a higher powered light source, but you can't go past the maximum on something small like this. So let's get this into play. And what's gonna happen here is that back wall is gonna cycle through colors, and every shot we take is gonna give us a different background color, which is so much fun. You can change how frequently these rotate the color. I'm gonna turn it on right now. You can actually see that it is giving me all these different colors relatively quickly. So click, 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 click. yellow, blue, green, all these different color backgrounds, every different shot, which is so much fun to mess around with and gives you a pretty wide gamut of shots when you're done with it. So let's put this on a stand. I'm gonna throw it right here on this carbon nanopole. It's a super light, so it's going on a super light stand. I'm just gonna put it right there on the quarter 20. And we're gonna put this halfway between the wall and Sheila, and we're gonna put it right between her shoulder blades pointing towards the wall. That's gonna give us as much even of a spread as we can get. Let me put this in here. And yeah, so you guys should be able to see that background's just like flying through colors. Now, the challenge here is for me, this is a constant light source right here lighting me. So we might have to shut this off to really get a true exposure for this backlight. What we wanna do is get a silhouette of Sheila, and then we wanna get our strobes in to get an exposure for Sheila. Makes sense? So let me just move this over a little more. And you guys can see the light back there. It's right here. As we go along, if I want to add more lights, I can always throw this one in there as well. What's fun about this, if this is running a different color, then you might get a crazy mix of mosh back there. And also the other thing to note is, since shutter speed is really what can dictate the exposure on your constant light without affecting your strobe, you can actually slow down your shutter speed more and more and more to really meld the colors and get even different colors that you wouldn't get otherwise when it's stuck on a specific color when you take the shot. So meaning if I slow it down to like a 15th of a second, it would give me 3 colors in the exposure that would mix together. You might not like it, but it's an option. So I've been talking a lot. Let's get an exposure for the back wall, and then we will bring in some strobes and get Sheila lit up. Let me take a look. Yeah, so that's the problem. We're gonna have to shut this light off. I'm gonna go dark, guys. It's just gonna look like a disco in here, I guess. I don't know if people even go to discos or anything, but whatever. Click that off. All right, so it's pretty dark in here. I apologize. Let's get an exposure for that back wall, and then we'll worry about the strobes for Sheila. So I am at 100 ISO. I'm not gonna creep that up till I have to. I'm at f4, which is as wide as I can go on this lens. And I'm just looking, since this is a mirrorless camera, it's a Nikon Z6 II, I can really just basically see what's going on. In fact, how about I give you guys a live view while we do that, and you can actually see what I'm looking at. So at 100 ISO at f4, the widest aperture I have in there, there's the light behind her. I can either speed up my shutter and really subdue that color, or I can slow it down. And the more I slow it down, the brighter that color gets. You can actually see it starting to affect Sheila. We don't want that. We want to keep these separated. So at about a 30th, it looks pretty saturated. If I go even slower, if I go too slow, what's going to happen is it's going to keep on melding the color in the shot. We might not like what we get, but let's go to a 30th. Let's take a quick shot. And we should get like some sort of blue background. I'm thinking, yep, blue background. That looks pretty good. Now all we need is strobes for Sheila, and we can actually just have a constant changing background. So let's do that. I'm gonna turn this light back on so you can see what we're doing. We have our exposure for the back wall. Now what we have to do is get our strobes in here and match the power of the strobe to the f4 at ISO 100 that I'm set to. Not hard, TTL, let's do this. I'm gonna keep this really, really simple. I'm just gonna use 2 speed lights. This is a Profoto A1. We're gonna turn this on in group A. And I tell you what I'm even gonna do. I'm gonna go to that back wall and I'm gonna shut off the light back there so we can just focus on zone 1. So I'm gonna shut this off really quick. Boom. Now, all I'm gonna worry about is the metering on Sheila. And in a situation like this, I use spot metering. I find spot metering helps out a lot with TTL in tricky situations. So you're worried about someone wearing like all white and you want to get their skin tone pretty solid, go to spot metering on their face. You'll probably get a better result or something you're more happy with because it's metering from that one point that you care more about. So we're gonna put this in here. I'm probably gonna put in a second light, but let's just start with this. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna put on a trigger. This light is not doing anything, it's just a trigger. Okay, it is on. We are in TTL, and I'm just gonna take a quick shot oh, you know what? So I can't actually take the shot as is. If I leave it at a 30th of a second, we're gonna see the exposure of this light come in because it's a constant light source, remember? So instead of shutting that light off and having no light to work with, my solution is I'm gonna speed up my shutter speed to 200 a second, my flash sync, eliminate this exposure as much as I can, because all we care about is the flash speed having the proper power for f4. So if I go to my TTL, I gotta look on it, boom, I take a shot. We take a look at the tether, and there's Sheila. The only exposure is the speed light, which is great. She looks pretty dramatic though. We could give her a second light. I think I'm gonna do that. Let's give her a fill light. So I have another speed light right here. We're gonna walk it in and we're gonna put it into group B. And because I already see the power on that light is actually really low, it's set to 3, I'm going to just go ahead and dial this one to 2. So it's not gonna be a 1-for-1. It's gonna be a little bit underexposed compared to my key, meaning I'm not gonna have completely gone shadows, which is really what I want right now. I just wanna have like a little bit of shape, but fill in those shadows. I'm thinking way too much about a mannequin shot, but this is what we do, guys. This is what we do. So it's like an under over with the Pro Photo soft bounce on either one. I'm actually a pretty good, big fan of these things. You know, some people not really into them, but I like them. So let's take a look at that shot and nice. So she's filled in pretty decently. And we have, so you can see the difference right there, right? Key light with a fill underneath. So you have either or. You could do some pretty dense shadows and have some nice shape to her, or you can fill in those shadows and have more of a glamoury type look. Whatever you wanna do, the strobes are really up to you as far as wherever you wanna take that. Let's turn on that back light now. And now I already know that at f4, my strobes are where I want them. At f4, the backlight is where I want them. But what isn't there is my shutter speed. I sped it up just for the strobes, right? Because I didn't want this light affecting me. This is a problem of my current situation. You probably aren't gonna have someone videotaping you with a giant light in front of your face, also lighting your subject. So what I can do is go back to slowing down my shutter to a 30th where I made my first exposure for the background. Now I can shut this light off. And now we're gonna take this shot. Let's go into a live view so you guys can see what I'm seeing. All right, so you guys see that back wall is rotating through colors, and every time I take a shot, it'll be a different color against that wall, which is really fun. And I'm gonna go into live view so you can actually see that happening. All right, it's a party in here, woo! You're actually looking at it, right? So there, you're actually seeing every time I take a shot, it'll change the color. Let me move this over a little bit so that you can actually see Sheila. I'm gonna move her over to the other side of the frame a little bit. Now here's what's fun about this. I'm at a 30th of a second to match the wall back there, right? We wanted the exposure to be brighter, so slower shutter allows a little bit more of that light to enter my lens. I could also speed up my shutter. It'll dim it, but it might actually give me a different color because it'll be less mixy, right? So anyway, the fun part about this, I feel like I keep going on tangents, I apologize. The fun part about this is because I'm wide open, the speed lights can recycle extremely fast. And so I don't have to worry about anything. It's like boom, 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 boom. See that? Blue, some kind of rust color, another blue one. We got red up here. We got another, what is that? Brown, olive, I don't know, chocolate going on there. Here's some teal. We got some purple going on right here, which is fantastic. Oh, that's kind of a fun color. And this is just every shot different. Bang, 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 bang. That's what's so fun about it, right? Now, I could play games and let's like really slow the shutter down and see what happens. If I'm at like a 10th, right? You guys hear how slow that shutter is? It'll mix the colors differently. So now I have a brighter blue, a brighter olive, a brighter pink, right? So the shutter speed actually will not only dictate the exposure, but the types of colors we get. In fact, if I boost it back up to about, I don't know, let's go to a 1/60th. Let's just do that. 1/60th of a second. If I boost it up to that, click, 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 click. You guys will see a different color. Actually, look, it's way underexposed, right? But you might like the subtle the subtle color. You might like that subtle exposure, that it's there, but it's not really overpowering. And this is all just from shutter speed, which is the funnest part of the whole thing. So, I mean, you can just keep going after this. You can find something in the middle. Let's do a 60th. Let's see what we get there. And you'll get different colors. That's a pretty saturated blue, actually. But you see how the 60th of a second is a little bit faster. So I'm getting 2 frames per color now of the same, like the same 2 blue, get it? It's really interesting how this is working, but it's something that's so fun. You get a couple of people in front of your lens, you just play games, bang, bang, bang. You know, you zoom out, you give them like something different. Yeah, look at that. And it'll actually change the background light a little bit, right? So all these options, this is like one of the funnest things. Now, this is all well and good, but here's what I want to do, because this is something I haven't tried, but why not try it with you guys in front of me? We also have this little guy, right? Well, why don't I put this on a super clamp and mount it right there on that same stand? I'll just clamp it right underneath the other light and we'll have 2 colors going at different times. I don't know what this is gonna do. I don't know if it's gonna do anything. It might just mix colors for all I know. Let's make the lights go burp, 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 burp. So this is on what they call a hue loop. And because that's a 1/4-20, I can just screw it to this super clamp. If you don't know what a super clamp is, they're one of the best things ever created. I mean, they'll let you do anything. So let's clamp this to the stand in the back and get something cool. Now, this isn't to say that you couldn't make these your key and fill light either, right? Like this could be something you light your model with instead of the strobes from under over, right? So that's something to keep in mind as well. Maybe that's something you want to do. All right. So we have 2 different lights going at 2 different colors. We might just get like some unicorn vomit going on here, but I'm into it. Let's shut this light off and let's get back into the tether. You can actually see that there's some weird stuff going on over there, right? Click, click, click. Let's see what we're getting. We're getting nothing crazy, just a bunch of mixes, right? Let me see. Nothing crazy. Well, we tried it, right, guys? And that's kind of the point. Also, I think there's something to be said for when you do stuff like this, your models get into a different frame of mind. Like it's kind of interesting to see how models, let's see if I can zoom out. Maybe I'll get more different, like a gradation of 2 different colors. Nah, there's a gradation of colors. It's just not that crazy. What we could do is raise the stand a little bit, but I'm afraid that if I do that, I'll be playing with that like the entire video, and I don't think that's like any fun. But check that out, guys. When you do stuff like this and there's colors flying around, your models kind of get psyched. It's a lot more fun. It's more dynamic. It's interesting. You know, they kind of get into it. So there's something to be said for that as well. I mean, this is actually a pretty cool color. This is like that chocolate, I think Roscoe, or is it Lee? It's number 99 is the gel called chocolate. But this pink is ignited. Look at that. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. So think about it. We could have just shot Sheila with just 1 speed light. Instead, we got all this craziness. And how fast did we shoot this? We got all these different colors. Now imagine your model is actually posing and moving. I'm not saying you're a bad model. I'm just saying that some models actually pose, Sheila. Crazy idea, Sheila. I don't know. But yeah, if your models could actually twist, go one way or the other, you have a lot of options there. So I hope this was kind of fun for you guys. It was pretty fun for me. I know Sheila just had a blast. Look at that. She's gonna be up all night. She's just going crazy. Anyway, look at some of these lights and see if they have these options for rotating colors. Both of those lights are under $100. The tube is $100, I think. But you know, you catch sales or whatever. Either way, I do like what Nanlight's putting out there, so maybe check that company out. Whatever it is, it's really easy for them to program these lights to go through cycles like this, and it's super fun. And you might even like it just for your own. You could slow it down and maybe have it for the background of your Twitch stream or whatever. But there's multiple uses for constant LED RGBW lights like this. Tubes are super fun. The fact that that one is magnetic is awesome. I really like it. And the 1/4-20 means when not only can I screw it down onto that stand, but I could actually screw 2 of them together and make a 20-inch tube. So 2 foot tube right there if you got 2 of them. So anyway, hope you guys like this. Let me know down below if you like seeing kind of stuff like this. I'm still trying to find my footing on this channel a little bit. I want to get the identity rolling, but you know, I've been kind of putting this channel on the back burner. I'm trying to change that if you haven't noticed. We've been doing a lot of stuff on this channel, and thank you guys for joining me. All right, for those of you who just met me, my name's Seth Miranda. Thanks for joining me. Hit like, share this video around. Don't forget to subscribe and the bell for more videos like this, and I'll see you next time. Later. It's fine, say goodbye. I wasn't trying to block you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go, there they are. Diva. Taking over the channel again to go over C-stands with you. It seems like there is a lot of questions about how to actually set them up, how to be safe with them, get the most stability, optimize them, use them for different things. And I totally get that because I feel like we do a lot of education on here's how you do this type of lighting and the creation of things and all stuff that's kind of like fun and things like, and not that C-stands aren't fun. It's just that we overlook supports a lot, I feel, and supports can easily make everything that much better and elevated in your setup, can make you work faster, can allow you to do different setups and make the most of a space. And C-stands is definitely one of them, are definitely one of them. Oof, I'm killing it with the English today. Anyway, C-stand, what is it? Well, C-stand actually stands for Century Stand. And this actually is a bit of a debate. It was developed at 20th Century Fox, and that's kind of, maybe that's where the name came from. But the other school of thought is it came from this 100 centimeter reflector that's used to mount on these stands, 100 centimeters, which is about 3 feet or so, I believe. 100, Century Stand, C-stand. And they stood the test of time, and that's easy to see why. Once you start working with them, you start realizing how versatile they are, how well thought out they are, and how much they make use of the space you have with a smaller footing there. So with other stands and things like that, you take up a footprint of your space for, you know, diagonal legs and stacking them on top of one of each other when they get closer together for things like tabletop or whatever. It gets a little cumbersome, but this is kind of really what lets you use the floor as much as you can and still get those stands pretty close together. I'm gonna go over that in a second. Let's go over the parts of this thing. So this is a completed C-stand with a grip arm on it and a pin and everything like that. But let's go to the base of what this is. First of all, this is an Avenger C stand in black. They come in a bunch of colors, not a bunch of colors, I guess just black and chrome really, or stainless. But this is a 4 and some inches tall stand when it's all closed down like this, and it goes up to about 9 feet 8 inches or 10 feet, somewhere around there. And you have your base and you have your center column. Now you can take this all apart. Let me just, I know I'm off frame. Have your center column, which is 1 1/8 inch on the base, which means that your base is 1 1/8 receptor. Not only do you have a base that you can set up for the center column, but you can get adapters for it. And just before I even throw in the rest of this, let me show you one of those adapters. This right here is a junior, which is 1 1/8 inch, to baby, which is 5/8. 5/8 is the size you see on the top of every light stand. And we're gonna go into that on the top of this light stand, even the pin that goes into your arm. But you can drop this into your base, tighten it down, and then you basically have the lowest to the ground, most stable stand you'll ever see with a 5/8 post on it. So you can get this pretty much to the ground. And yes, there are floor stands, there are other stands that go really low, some that actually go to the ground, it's like that, but they're not as stable as this. If anything, they're basically like flat metal that happens to have a post on it, and it is what it is. But this will let you mount anything with a 5/8 socket on it, including flags and other things like that. So this is super useful, but it's also, you know, an add-on, right? This is an adapter, you don't need this. But junior to baby is basically what you're looking at when you're talking about these sizes on these stands. So we're gonna put this down on the ground. As you can see, each leg is at a different height. Yes, it lets you fold it down so that it's flat like I showed you before, but what that really lets you do is let you stack legs over each other. And we're gonna go into that once we build the stand. So just stay with me. I know I keep on like losing track, but there's just so much with C-stands, you're gonna lose your mind. Okay, so we're gonna put our center column into the base. We're gonna tighten it down, and we're gonna put it to the floor. But the one thing you really wanna think about when you're setting up a C-stand is you always wanna think about that tall leg. See how this leg is taller than the rest of these? Everything that you wanna concentrate is basically the tall leg. Check this out. So when you set up your C-stand, the first thing you wanna do when you get that center column in, or just basically have this set up like this all the time when you get started. Just think of it this way. You want to stand behind the stand and you want that tall leg facing that way. You want it to be like this. And when you're doing that, if my tall leg is going this way as I'm facing the stand, my little knobs should be on the left. Little knobs on the left basically control my tiers, right? And you always want to remember that when you're putting a C stand up, or any stand really, you want to start with the top tier and then the second tier. You want to get it to a point where if I was to put it up here without touching the top tier and I can't reach it, I'm you know, backs to the wall on that one. However, if I start with the top tier and then if I needed some more height, I got the second tier right there, no problem. So that's just like common knowledge, but I figured I would just touch on that really quickly. And you want to try not to always max out the height. Remember, we're always thinking about stability. We're always thinking about what will keep it in place. And the taller something goes, the less stable it becomes, right? Even on a C stand. Well, you kind of want to just be conscious and aware of not maxing out the tier. You want to tighten that down, then pull up the second tier, okay? So now that I got my little knobs to the left, this is the basic C stand. This is without the grip arm on it. This is without anything but a 5/8 post. That means a light can go directly on here, done, no problems, right? Well, what if I want to put on that grip arm? And I think the arms are really where C stands excel, right? They're super great C stands as a whole. The one thing is they're really hard to kind of transform, right? They're not a travel stand. They're not the smallest thing in the world. I mean, no matter what, it will be this long, okay? You can take it apart, sure, but it's still long pieces of metal with some weight to them. But the advantage you get is you have arms and stability. So if we take our grip arm, which is actually 2 knuckles going on here. So the way you want to set this up, let me show you what this knuckle even is. All right, so the grip head itself actually has a lot going on. So let's zoom in and get a closer look. And right away you have your 5/8 socket right here that will allow you to fit it to your 5/8 post on your C stand, right? So your little knobs go on the left when you're facing the tall leg, remember? Now, this isn't just me saying this. There's a reason for that. We're gonna go into that once we put the arm on. But to put the arm on, we have to look at the actual grip head itself. So the grip head has a few sockets on it if you take a look at it, right? Whoop, let's put it in right there. Okay, so we have 5/8, which is the size of our post, right? So I can actually put it on here like that if I wanted to, and then use the socket here however I need to, but that's kind of dumb and backwards, but there are certain cases that you would do that. However, 5/8 is also the size of the grip arm rod. So that's where you put your rod in for the actual arm. But aside from that, we also have 3/8 and we also have 1/4" sockets. So you can actually see that as you go around, there's different size sockets. They go from larger to smaller. What are the smaller ones for? Well, if this is for posts and arms as 5/8, the 3/8 and the 1/4 are for things like flags or things with smaller dowels. Even umbrellas can be held inside of these things. But you'll see that things like flags, scrims, diffusers, and other things that are framed usually go into a smaller diameter socket, and they got you covered here on this grip arm. And there's even this little notch right here, and that notch is actually used for a few things. One of the things people use them for is running line through it, like fishing line, string, cabling, things like that. Or there are modifiers or frames that let you use these smaller size sockets, and then it has a little nub on the modifier itself that sticks in there and allows it to keep it more stable from pivoting, because it's usually like a large wind sail on a socket and it could twist and turn and do different things, but it's got you covered there. So that's basically a quick overview of what all this stuff is. Obviously, if something is still loose while you're tightening it down, you're using the wrong socket, and you should really take a look at what you're doing there. So let's zoom back out and let's go over like the fun part, which is the arm. So remember, I have the tall leg facing away from me. I put this down and I've got my little knobs to my left. Well, I'm gonna tighten this down, and then I'm gonna loosen the big knob up, which is on my right. Now, I have the 40" grip arm right here. These come in different sizes, 40", 20". There's articulating ones, all sorts like that. I've done videos on the articulating arms. You can check that out if you want to do a quick search. But a lot of people might call these like Hollywood arms or something like that, but they're basically just grip arms. There's a 5/8 rod And that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Because we just talked about it. I'm gonna go right into the 5/8 socket right on the grip arm. I'm gonna tighten this down a little bit. And now look, I have my big knobs on my right, my little knobs on my left. And this is a baby pin, an E650 pin to be exact, or some people call them coffin nail, which is totally awesome. It's one of the coolest slang terms I've heard on set, but I haven't heard anyone say it in a long time. I think it's like an older type thing that's dying out there, no pun intended, but maybe we'll bring it back with this video. Remember, coffin nail. So what is this? This is a baby pin. E650 is the actual part number if you're looking for it. This is a 5/8 pin that goes into your 5/8 receptacle on your, or socket on your grip head, right? This also has a notch on it so that when you tighten down your light, if it were to loosen at all, it'll get caught on the collars here. It also has a collar right here, which is 7/8, which means I can actually open this up and just slam it through. And when I slam it through, it can't fall out. And that's all safety measures, all right, guys? You wanna make sure that everybody on your set is safe. You wanna make sure that no lights fall. You wanna make sure you don't break any of your gear or any of the people in your set, right? You don't wanna be the photographer that hurt a bunch of people. Now, what else is this? Well, the problem is that a lot of people mount it to here. And while this is 5/8 and you have a 5/8 socket on your lights, this is not safe. It is a completely round dowel. It can spin, it can actually fall off. If it's just a little hair loose on the light itself, the knob on the light could fall off and hurt someone. But, and some people even tell me that, oh bro, you just take an angle grinder to it and you get the notch going. One, why are you gonna permanently damage a C-stand for no reason? Two, why are you gonna even play games trying to figure out where to put that notch so it even fits correctly wherever the pin is, the knob on your light? And three, really guys, it is invaluable to have a pin like this that not only doesn't cost a lot, I think these are like $8 US dollars, okay? Not only that, but you also are able to articulate the light way more. Let's get into that because this is where the little knobs on the left and the big knobs on the right come into play. So when I extend an arm and put a light on it, this is where things get super sketchy because you're literally putting the weight from the stand off the stand. And that means that while this is the stability point, now you've got weight hanging off. And we'll go into counterweights in a few minutes. Let's go into the most important part about hanging a light with an arm, and that is where your knobs are and where do you hang the light on the stand itself. So remember I said little knobs to the left, big knobs to the right. Well, if I have my big knobs to my right and I extend it this way, remember I'm putting it now, all the weight is over my tall leg. The tall leg is the most stable and it's going to be able to hold it. You're gonna put a sandbag on that leg. I'll go over that in a second. I feel like there's always so much, but I'm telling you right now, once you get used to C-stands and the common practice or even comprehend the physics or just common sense of it being safe, it's second nature to you. You're not even gonna think about it. I promise you, you're just gonna be like, you're gonna turn this into a transformer. It'll be nuts. Okay, so I'm hanging it over the tall leg, but I'm doing that with the big knobs on the right and the little knobs on the left, because if I put weight, let's say I have this light up here going this way and I tighten this down, if the weight is over here, it's spinning the knob to the right, righty-tighty. It's actually tightening the knuckle more and more instead of if I were to swing it incorrectly this way, tighten it down. If it was a little loose and there's a little bit of give, that actually worked out too well for me right now. But it'll give all the way and it'll just keep getting looser and looser because you're spinning the knob to the left. If you did it this way, you're doubling down on safety. And also I think even if you were to check if it was tight on this side, you'd be surprised how dumb little things like vibration on set, stupid things like that can actually affect how long something stays tight for. And every time you're putting heat into a situation, which is what we're doing on set, it gets a little warmer, it's like that, things change. I know I'm making a big deal about this, but this is really things you need to keep in mind. And if you just remember, big knobs right, little knobs left, and the arm always goes over the tall leg. If you do those three things, big knobs right, little knobs left, arm always over the tall leg, you are absolutely fine, I promise you. But this is as safe as it gets when it comes to hanging a light C-stand wise. And let's talk about securing that base. I'm gonna step back a little bit so you guys can see. You're gonna take your sandbag and you're gonna chuck it on the tall leg. I know. A lot of you go, but the weight should be back here to counteract the weight over here. I hear that all the time. You know, you're not totally wrong, but the reality is if this swings, that means the stand is the thing holding up that sandbag. If I were to put it on the back leg, and look, now the floor is holding up that sandbag and not the stand. Therefore, it is not stable. Remember, the primary bag goes on the tall leg. Any additional weight after that can go whatever. You want to put it on the back leg, fine, but you have to start with weight on the tall leg. Get it off of the ground, let the weight hang from the stand. Now you can get other different things like this, which are super awesome. This is slang term is pumpkin, but it's actually a counterweight. And what it does, it lets you have a little screw down clamp type situation onto a pretty good amount of weight in a small form factor, and you're able to actually clamp them to the legs themselves and they basically just stay there. These are great for things like roller stands, right? Where you can roll them around pretty easily, but you still need counterweight to keep them from the stand from tipping over. Or some people will even mount them to the back of the arm right about here. There's a lot of uses for these, but these are a bit of an investment. They're definitely more money than a sandbag, but they never leak. They take up less space, but sandbags definitely have more uses in the studio as far as like propping things up or whatever. So this is just something to keep in mind. Check them out if you want to take a look at them. And as a quick little bit before I let you guys go, let's talk about mounting reflectors on a C-stand, because I think this is something that you guys will not only use, but you'll also be able to take it and go, a little more understanding of C-stands, and you'll be using it with other things than just reflectors. Okay, so we got that, right? We can just extend the arm over the leg, but something that's really cool to throw in there, and I think you'll get a kick out of this, is if you take the pin out of here, and if you relax this knuckle and point this up, you now have a nice straight rod that will let you have a clamp over here. This is really useful for a lot of things. I'm going to show you with a reflector because I feel like that's the most common use of it. So with this, remember, if it's open, I have the flat part, or you have don't forget, you have these sockets right here, right? Well, if I open up the sockets, I now have something with a little bit of teeth on it. You guys can't see that too well. There we go. I have something with a little bit of teeth on it, right? So both have a use case. Now let's say I'm doing something like a board, right? Brooklyn reflector, foam board, right? White, maybe some silver, whatever you guys want to do. Well, if I open up this and I put it in the flat against the flat and I just give it a little bit of tight, nothing crazy. You don't want to squash the board and damage it for no reason. You just need to hold it there a little bit. And then if I loosen this knuckle that's on the stand, I now have the ability to put this wherever I want. Look at this beauty light. Look how pretty I am. But you can put it as a vertical, so if you want to have a reflector from the side, you know, however you want to put it. And once you have it set, you can tighten it down and then take out like an A-clamp and just boom, right there onto the arm itself, however you want to put it. It could be diagonal, whatever. You just are able to make it pretty stable for what it is for the time being, for what you need to shoot with it. Now let's say you're going, but Seth, what if I don't use the boards? What if I'm using a classical reflector with a spring in it? I got you covered. Remember those 5/8 sockets over here that I told you about? Remember I said they're kind of teethish? Well, they also allow for enough room for these springs. So if I just take this, and I open it up and I put it in between the teeth and I just give it a little bit of a snug, right? So it's in between the teeth and not in the flat part, but it's in the actual socket. Just a little tight, not crazy. And again, we're good to go. We have a reflector. We can put this wherever we want. Super useful. I mean, this is incredibly useful, especially if you're someone that works alone. You don't have someone hold a reflector for you, or if you need something to stay constant, right? boom, you're good to go. You have something that can always stay stable right where you want it. If you're working like an event and doing a bunch of shots, you want a reflector in the same place all the time, you can have your reflector where you want it, your light where you want it, stay stable, everything stays in the same place, and the next person comes in, shoot, 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 they're out. Next person comes in, shoot, 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 you're out. All sorts of stuff like that. So there's plenty of uses for all that kind of stuff. And then I think the last thing I'm gonna show you guys is why they're so awesome for tight spaces. And that's because you can stack these bases on top of each other really, really easily. Let's show you what I'm talking about. So I put these here. Let's get rid of this sandbag. If I take these two stands right here, if I take the tallest leg, remember I kept saying, keep your mind on the tall leg all the time. And if I just stick it over the lowest leg of the stand that's already on the ground, and I keep doing that, I'm able to stack a lot of stands in a row. And you may have even seen this in like movies or whatever, grip trucks. They have like 10, 20 stands on a small little cart because they can fit them all in place. But this doesn't just mean for storage. This means I can set a bunch of different lights to or whatever I need to wherever I gotta go, and in a tabletop type setup or something like that. Like you can get pretty tight. If this was normal stands, I would have a diagonal going like this and legs can't go over each other and you're like fighting for position there. This kind of allows for, let me show you guys. Really nice stance. I'll do that one more time because I think I was out of frame. Tall leg over the short leg, tall leg over the short leg. Boom. More space in your studio, more space when you're setting up, and you're pretty much all good to go on that front. And this is just scratching the surface of what you can do with C stands, but this is basic operation. Just remember those three key things, okay? If you're facing the stand, you want the tall leg that way. You want your little knobs on the left, your big knobs on the right. And anytime you hang an arm off of your stand, if you did this correctly, it goes over the tall leg. Arm, tall leg. That's it. Big knobs right, little knobs left, arm always over the tall leg. Can't lose. All right, I'm gonna leave it there. I hope this was helpful to you. I'm sure there's some people that were like, I knew all of that, but not a lot of people do. And there's a lot of people coming into the game that are coming from their phone to a camera, have never assisted anybody and are just buying stuff. And you wanna invest in grip like this that will last you for a long time. Remember, if this goes down, it's not just the stand that breaks, it's your light, it's your set, it's someone's eye, right? So invest in good stands. The Avengers are a staple. They've been a legacy brand out there for C stands for sure. This studio has plenty of them in here. And just remember, no matter what camera you use, what lights you change to, what system you change from back and forth or whatever, you still keep the same grip. So just remember that, okay? Don't ever skimp on grip. You will regret it later, I promise you. All right, that's gonna do it for me. If you wanna check me out, my name is Seth Miranda, Last Ex-Witness on all social. And don't forget to hit like, share this video around, hit subscribe, plus the bell to get notified when more videos like this come out. And hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Later. Both these stands close down to roughly the same length. They also seem to extend to the same height of about 7 feet. So what makes this one 80 bucks and this one 40 bucks? Stick around, let's talk about what I look for in travel stands. What's going on, everyone? Seth Miranda here, coming from my studio right here in Manhattan. If you don't know who I am, I'm a pro photographer right here in New York, and I do a bunch of videos on photo related stuff. And a while ago, I did a live stream on how to set up a C stand. Out of pure boredom, I did that one, but it's still today one of my best performing videos. I get comments on all the time, and apparently there aren't a lot of grip videos out there, so I keep getting asked to do more. Well, one of the things I'm like obsessed over is always finding the best travel stand. I'm always on the road. I need to keep my kits small. And there's a lot of things I look for in a travel stand because you're hanging a lot of yourself off that stand, whether it's an expensive light or something else. If it hits the ground, could hurt someone. It has to be small, light, nimble, yet still strong and worthwhile in your kit. So let's talk about a few things I look for. This is gonna sound like crazy obsessive, but I hope it gives you guys some insight into some things to look for when you are out there purchasing some smaller lightweight stands that you might throw in your bag when you're around your own neighborhood to shoot, or you're traveling internationally like I have to for work sometimes, or wherever you're going. If you need to bring a stand with you and make it worthwhile, let's talk about what I look for. So the first thing I look at is what the length of the stand is when it's closed, because I can only have a max length of 20 inches. And here's why. So when I'm traveling, I use this. The Think Tank Security V3. This is my carry-on case. It houses a bunch of speed lights, a ton of grip, and the internal dimension maximum is 21 inches, which means a 21-inch stand is probably the best you're gonna get in there, because you know it's not gonna be straight and all different other things. So if I take the stand I always use, it definitely fits in there, and I carry a minimum of 2 of these at all times inside this case, which is great. So it has to be a maximum of 20 inches closed. Now that's not a big thing, right? There's plenty of stands that do that. But what happens to that stand when it's open? What are the other features of it? And what can I use it for and get the most out of it? And how durable is it? Blah, 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 right? Well, let's take a look at this. So after you have the length, you worry about the diameter of it closed, because every inch in your case means something. And when you start saving an inch on everything, you start having a lot of space to add more things and be able to do a lot more on set, because you just have so much more versatility and more tools to work with, right? I'm a little crazy, maybe you're not, but this is the Matthews Mini Reverse Stand. This is the stand that I put in that case, and I'm always looking for like the best travel stand. I always wonder if there's something that will dethrone this for me, and this has been in that case alone for at least 5 years, maybe more, and it's yet to fail on me. It's yet to just make me want to throw it out of my case, or I have yet to find something that I think is better than it, and here's why. First of all, the closed diameter of it is tight. In case you want to compare it, here is another stand, and I don't know if you guys can really tell, but it is considerably bigger all the way around. In fact, it doesn't even close that clean. Now, when this stand closes, it's nice and clean. This stand, it's actually can't even close down all the way. It goes right into a bunch of threads, which I think a lot of us have seen stands that do that. It's like a garage sale stand, I consider it. Now, I'm not gonna go into which brand I'm gonna compare this Matthews to. I'm only gonna keep referring to this by brand because it's what I actually use, I trust, and I believe in it. I'm not sponsored by Matthews. This video isn't sponsored by Matthews. It's just a solid legacy brand, and I really love this stand. These stands, I'm gonna gaff tape out the name, but I'll say it's a brand that a lot of you people seem to love a lot out there, and it's very budget friendly all across the board around what they make. But there are caveats to things. The first thing I'm gonna say is, this has a load capacity of 9 pounds. This load capacity of 4.4 pounds. So they both close the same length, they both extend the same height, but right away, this closes down tighter, gives me more space in the bag. This also can take more than double, or basically double, the weight capacity on it. Right there, awesome. Now, the other thing I look for is how it's built. What is it made out of? So, you know, there are a lot of plastic parts that sneak their way onto lower cost stands. And in the end, it costs you more money, because you're either gonna buy that stand more than once, or something's gonna fall off that stand and you're gonna have to buy that again. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to buy and not to buy. There's definitely cases where I bought budget stands, and I will go over that later on in this video. But for the most part, I look at grip as the most sound investment in your kit. No matter what camera you switch to, lenses you're using, lights you're on, it doesn't matter. The grip stays with you for like almost your whole career, as long as it holds up. And believe me, I have grip that has been with me since day one, because I bought it once. And the other argument I'll say is, a lot of people say, well, if it's cheap enough, I can buy it twice. Okay, well, I would rather not have it fail at all. So when I'm out there in the field, it's not that, oh, it broke, not a big deal, it only cost me this much. It's more like, well, now I can't do what I'm trying to do, and now I gotta come with a plan B, C, or D. And that's where I don't play games. And not to mention, who knows what could fail on this and potentially hurt someone or damage other gear. So that's the whole thing to itself. I'm on a tangent. Let's get back to what I look for. Okay, so why don't we start with the bottom to the top, right? So right away on the Matthews stand, what you're looking at are these really nice bolts that you can tighten. So it's not rivets. This, all I need to do is carry around, which is really easy to do. In my case is a box wrench, maybe even an adjustable wrench, and an Allen key that fits. And it's like having a new stand again. There's no play because I'm constantly putting this back to zero. With other stands like this one, it's rivets and they're always kind of shaky, right? There's always some give to them. There's always a little bit of play to it. Now imagine while it's in your case and it's getting crammed into an overhead or smashed against some stuff or thrown in a trunk or gears getting piled on top of it, your legs get bent one way or another and keep flexing and stretching out those rivets and you start getting more and more play. After a while, your stand has a hard time staying stable or staying just straight because there's gives somewhere in it. That's what you don't really want in the stand. You want it to be as stable as possible. That's the point of the stand, is to grip and be stable and be a support. Whoa, I know. So is that a deal breaker? Maybe it isn't for you. Maybe you just need a small light stand to throw into a backpack and just get down to the park to shoot some shots. Totally fine. But if you're like me and you're traveling and there's a lot of people resting on your shoulders to get the job done that day, the last thing we can do is, yeah, I know that stand broke and I'm down a light, but hey guys, I saved a bit of money on that stand. You never want to say that. So what else do I look for? Well, after we get past the base, let's talk about the knobs. So on the budget brands, you tend to have these knobs that are, well, basically a bolt and a clamping system. And what happens is you can easily get to a point where you go past a tension and you just have a bolt that spins forever and you could actually have a failed clamp and the whole stand is kind of garbage. Or what actually happens is you keep on going a little bit more and a little bit more each time because you end up wearing down or breaking in these clamps to a point where they just don't want to tighten that much more and you keep going and going, and that's when you have the bolt spin forever. Or the other side where it's a hex like stuck inside there, what happens there is sometimes that rounds out, or over time, if you didn't keep up on maintenance of it, it could keep on shifting towards the edge and then it becomes a point where it doesn't have a bite on it. You didn't think about it, you didn't look at it, you went to go tighten it, you're talking to somebody, tighten it, and you start rounding out that socket. Things like that happen. When I looked at the Matthews, what was great about this is it's basically what a C-stand does. It's a bolt going into the rod itself. So there's no clamp happening here. It's basically a bolt going in, and which is basically the same system you would have on the socket on a light, right? You put it onto a stand, you tighten it down. This is the same exact idea as that. So right away, you already know that you have more longevity on a stand like this, or even the ability to put more tension on it because it's going into and against the post rather than trying to use a clamp system where it's bending and bending and always bending. And at some point, the weakest point of that will give way a spinning knob. And I'm sure a few of you that are watching this can tell me down in the comments how many of the stands you have out there where the knob just keeps on spinning forever. I feel you, I'm with you, I heard you, believe me, I hear you. We got the close down length, we have the close down diameter, we have the base and what it's adhered by or basically built with, and then we have the knobs, right? But what about the actual tubes themselves? Well, this is a thicker tube. This means that the tubes are less susceptible to swaying or bending because they have more stability to them. Now, this does make this stand a little heavier than, you know, this guy right here. Absolutely, but it also lets this stand be rated for 9-pound capacity instead of 4.4, and that's a big deal. Now, one thing that I'll say about a lot of budget stands is they try to throw in these like weird little extras that seem they're very convenient. So at the top of stands like this, you have a 1/4-20 that could also be a 3/8. What do I mean? Well, I'm saying there's threads there, and that's cool, right? You think to yourself, oh man, if I just want to put a speed light there with a foot, or you know, some sort of small camera or a microphone, even if I wanted to, you have it right there. The problem is, no matter what you do, no matter what you say to yourself, you are going to bang these threads and you're going to smash them. And then what's going to happen is they're going to be unusable really quickly. And if you don't recognize that they're unusable and you try to thread something on there, you could damage the equipment you try to thread onto this. And you cannot replace this because it's pinned into place. It's not something that like you can unscrew something and just change that post. It's in there. And then that becomes useless. And it's like, who cares anymore? That's why I'm more into having just a straight up hardcore, you can beat the hell out of it, 5/8 post right there. If I need something with threads, I'll carry something that is an adapter or an umbrella adapter or something that will put threads on top of this, which isn't hard to do. You guys have seen me do a lot with stands, especially from a travel kit, including articulating arms, which is something I'm gonna get to in a few minutes. Now, let's talk about this thing opened up and actually full function, right? So let's open this to this full 7 feet that it's telling me it can go, right? And they both will go to the same height. But then there's the stability factor, right? There's this on the budget brand, which is, it is what it is, right? And then there's my tried and true guy over here, which already feels super tight and nice and safe and sound. And when I open it up, as soon as it hits the ground, you don't hear any of this like rattling or whatever, but you see how quickly it goes back to place? See how like crazy flimsy that is? This goes right to true pretty easily, and that's how you can tell how much stability you have on it. Now here's where one of you in the comments is gonna go, well, all that rattling and shaking and all that loose stuff doesn't mean anything once there's weight on it. It's a travel stand. You're not putting a lot of weight on it. And on top of that, this can't take as much weight as this. So right there, when you're talking about $80 versus $40, this might be $80 and I've had it for 5 years, but this could be $40 and then next year another $40 and 6 months after that another $40 and you're 120 bucks deep and you're wondering why you keep buying this stand. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to making smart decisions with your grip, and especially if you want to do more with it. You don't know where you're going to be in a few years as a photographer or whatever you're doing out there that requires stands. You don't know what you are going to get yourself into, what gear you're going to buy, what's going to come out, how your style shifts, what gear you'll carry with you to supplement that style. I love a lot of lights. There's no denying that. And if I want to, I can take this stand like I do all the time in the middle of the streets. You guys have seen this in videos all over Adorama TV, where I'll take something like an articulating arm and I'll just mount it, boom, right to this. Make sure things are tight. And I'm pretty good to go. There's gonna be some sway to it, especially when you put it all the way up to the top, right? There's definitely gonna be some sway to it. And there's definitely gonna be a little bit of flex to it. And what I could do also is just drop these legs all the way flat to the ground to give it as much as I can. And then if I wanted to, I could even use this articulating arm to go higher with the light if I really wanted to. Of course, remember when you're hanging something off a light, you go right over a leg. That's the most stable point. You don't wanna go in between legs, it'll fall right over. But it's pretty stable and I feel all right with it. I mean, yeah, I can't really say that for some other stands, especially ones with thinner tubing or different, clamp and knob systems going on out there. But that's a big deal. And, I use Profoto speed lights. They're about $1,000 each, and hanging something off of a stand that's $1,000, it'll get your heart pumping a little bit, but I don't feel that nervous with this stand. I can't say that about other ones. And as far as the articulating arms go, if you're curious about that, I'll put a link down below for my video on articulating arms. Go check that out. I get a lot of questions about them, and there's a whole world to those as well. But just keep in mind, as far as travel stands go, they're not gonna be the most stable thing on earth. You can only get to stable enough. Keep in mind, this is a 5-year-old stand, right? I've beaten the hell out of it. You guys have seen it in videos all over the place on Adorama TV and other things. This is fresh out of the box, and this is as good as it gets, and it will only get more and more flexible and loose over time. And after a while, you're just asking for some sort of issue to happen there. Why would you go for a low-cost brand over the more expensive? And what did I say earlier that I have easily taken low-cost brands over the expensive brand? Well, sometimes I'm doing a job and I just need it for that day, or and this sounds absolutely terrible and I'm well aware of this, you do a job and sometimes it costs less to leave it there than to fly back with it, believe it or not. And I'll end up giving these away to assistants or someone there, or there was actually a job that was at a convention center that I would leave them there and then I'd have to come back for the convention the next year and they'd be there in a closet somewhere. You got to get in with the janitors and the maintenance guys. They'll hook it up. Also, it's one of those things that you have to judge for yourself how serious you are, right? I mean, are you just checking this out? Is it something that's not gonna travel? You just needed a small stand, it's gonna stay in one place? Maybe that's fine, maybe it works for you. Why go crazy if you're not gonna go crazy, right? There's plenty of reasons to save that extra dollar, but for me, when I'm working, again, it's a real tough sell to myself to go, hey, I will put this $1,000 speed light on something that's a little shaky, that's 40 bucks less. You know, and this is me talking as a pro that my gear is how I make my living, how I pay my rent, how I eat. And if you're not in that situation, maybe it's not that crazy for you. But for me, I don't think spending an extra 40 bucks is a question. You know, especially if you're someone that looks to resell your gear, keep that in mind. I could sell this stand again, probably no problem, sell a whole kit and then move on and upgrade, or maybe I'll just retire, I don't know. But there's a lot to be said for buying quality stuff that's meant to be a support for the rest of your system. And there's also the peace of mind. I don't know how many of you get stressed out when you're going on a job or going somewhere, but you know, just, oh, I'm missing that one piece, or, oh my gosh, that thing broke. Or how many of you guys use systems that require 20 different adapters for things, and once that piece of plastic breaks, you're not using that softbox with that light that day. It all happens to us. Everything rests on like a freaking needle on everything that we do. If you don't have that adapter, that cable, this thing, that charger, why give yourself another thing to stress about? So that's my little spiel on travel stands. Again, these aren't like the end all. They aren't meant to be carrying a lot of weight. You probably saw some flex happening there with the articulating arm, but these stands aren't meant to be your end all. They're not a C stand. And if they made a C stand that somehow miraculously would collapse down and go into a traveling case or a carry-on case or whatever, it would be amazing, but it doesn't exist, guys. I don't know what to tell you. But there are better choices, and there's definitely a better way to go about things, and peace of mind goes a long way. You, as a creative, don't you kind of want to just get your head free and get all the variables you can off your back so you can stay consistent on the course you're trying to get to, which is your final product? I don't like my lights changing colors, exposures, all sorts of things. I don't like my grip falling apart. I don't like my bag having zippers that break. I don't like having gear that I feel will at some point fail on me, and then I fail what I'm trying to do, or have to make compromises to just get out of the job alive or the shoot alive. And even if you're a hobbyist, maybe it's not about a paycheck, but it's about your time and energy and ambition. It's hard to stay inspired and ambitious about what we're trying to do. And once, I know everyone's been in this situation where you go shoot something, it didn't work out, and then you say, oh, I figured it out. And you never really go back to shoot it again because it's a lot to take in. It's a big hill to climb to get that ambition and go do it again. So do yourself a favor and make wise decisions for your gear. Think about what your needs are. Think about what you're trying to do. But for me, this Matthews mini reverse stand has still held up as my favorite travel stand. I'm putting links down to it down below. All right. That's gonna do it for me, guys. I hope this was helpful at all. There's a lot of things to consider when looking at grip, and I know people look at stands and tripods and go, it's just a bunch of legs. It's all the same. It kind of isn't. So if you want to know anything or have any questions, hit me with a comment down below. Don't forget to like, share this video around, it really helps out. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified when more videos like this come out on my channel. Thank you guys so much for spending your time with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.